Again.
It's another wonderful day in paradise.
Oh, you're feeding back.
I'm supposed to be living in paradise, but here in Florida, we got storms.
Who has the echo?
Crew.
That's crew.
It's me. Hold on one second. I'm going to fix it. Is that better?
Let's give it a C and find out.
Nope.
Hold on.
Just blame Florida man.
Alright, well, crew, you stay muted for just the moment. Gonna let everyone know, yes. There are stuff and things to talk about later. There are announcements related to the channel that are going to come at the end of the stream. In the meantime, we're gonna kick back, have fun, catch up on some old times, talk about some stuff and things and shenanigans that have gone on, and just do our typical thing. Because there are some people in the know. Oh, and also, if you guys want to comment about the standby music this time, we can thank channel member, Discord server admin, Leon, for composing that one.
Yep.
And that music is free and available to use unless you're a certain fucking asshat from Scotland. No, your ass has to pay if you want to use it. There was another way I was supposed to word it, but no. I'm not going to word it that way this time. Maybe later. We'll see. But there are definite stuff and things that have been going on.
Wait, you mean that there's an asshat out there from Scotland? Shit, I thought they were just all assholes.
One, I'm not getting into that one today. That is going to be another topic for another time, which I know is coming up soon.
No, sir. I didn't like it.
No, there is something else more fascinating that has come up recently that we're going to talk about first.
Jesus Buckman! This stuff's been on the Stingray since Korea!
Funny, still looks like cream corn. That's the problem! It's deviled ham!
I mean, we're not going to jump right off into what's bugging Jay Brown this week. You know, I mean, he's been heartbroken all day over this, and I feel bad for him. I think we ought to save that for last.
Oh, no. He's been chomping at the bit for this one because, surprise, surprise, everyone, the official report of what happened to the USS Connecticut was released just the other week. And I will say this, I'm surprised how quickly it was released because of what happened.
Oh, yeah, no, because let's go to the top of this. This was, what? Done in October, at the end of October. They were done with their investigation. Although I do like the Admiral's last name, don't you, Jared?
Oh, God damn it, I didn't even realize that at the time.
I'm sure it's no relation, but at the same time, but, you know. Oh, and the declassification date? April 20th?
420.
Somebody was high in the Navy at that time.
Well, you never know, but probably.
Either that or that's, they just stamped it.
No, well, see, here's the thing is that, there was that crash in the 1980s on board the Nimitz that caused the Navy to go zero tolerance.
Well, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the ration of safety incidents that also occurred throughout the 70s and late 60s leading up to that as well.
Or the submarine groundings and collisions of the same era. It wasn't like the Navy had issues with general seamanship, period.
Wait, Navy
You
has
said
issue
seaman.
with seamanship?
I was going to say something there because, hey, they're all white uniforms, kind of think.
Well, of course they have problems with semen. They stick it in a tube and put it underwater.
Normally, you would think You would think that would be the safest place to put them.
All right.
But let's get into the wonderful list and narrative of deficiencies that happened.
Where to begin besides the scope of the investigation? I just have to highlight the potential command climate issues and general tense relationship between the crew and the staff of their squadron, the Submarine Development Squadron 5. I determined that these potential issues did not have a casual connection to the grounding and were beyond the scope of this investigation. Basically, CSDS 5, you're going to get your shit taken care of too.
Yeah, and there was a detail a bit later in the narrative leading up to the incident that at least there's one person who was in the squadron command level that is actually kind of in the clear because, oh boy, he tried to do things before this was an issue.
Oh yeah, and the best part about it though is it wasn't actually the Commodore. It was whoever he assigned as the investigating officer. So some commander or 06 captain. Yeah. So basically, the investigation team was doing a review of the Kinetics pre-deployment cycle, and what happened afterwards, the inspections and the interviewing of the key members of the staff, as well as the type commanders, and CTF 74, who's probably been lying out his ass as well, but can't prove it. They were doing they were in the middle of doing a hemevac when this happened, so that would explain the speed they were going at.
Testing.
And then
Testing.
yes, Cal,
Oh, okay. There we go.
you're a little quiet. Okay. And then just that the judge advocate is not going to assign an investigator at the time of this report being created. I'm sure that they have done they did their investigation at the same time. So, and no, at the time of the report there was no final repair cost or schedule estimates. So,
Because they still didn't know where the fuck they were going to get the replacement sonar dome yet.
yep.
Everybody who got in trouble probably got promoted.
No. Not in this type of incident.
But I thought that's how it happens in most military. You get in trouble bad enough, they promote you so you don't get in trouble again.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this case, not with this job.
Yeah, in this, not just this job, aviation side too. If you are found to be directly responsible in some way to this level of damage, your career's over.
And that would be for the enlisted, the officers. That's hard to say, right?
Well,
No, both.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
So the investigating officer, Rear Admiral Lower Half Kavanaugh, flew all the way out to Guam after the initial report of what happened to the Connecticut, and they're being subsequently told to go to Guam. He was there waiting with the Commodore from Squadron 5, and sat down with him and the CEO in the. I don't know if it was actually. He says on board the Connecticut. It could be there. It could be in the CEO stateroom, the wardroom. Who knows? Could also be on the Emery S. land as well, because he had to talk to that commanding officer about the maintenance and everything about submarine operations.
See, what y'all don't realize is all this could have been prevented if y'all had BMs.
Oh no.
No.
Oh no. You just wait, crew.
BMs will fix everything, y'all. You don't even know.
Oh no. So
The problem with having BMs on submarines is they can't hold their breath that long.
Funny.
So at the start of the investigation, the Admiral Kavanaugh did not suspect any interviewee of violating the UCMJ. But as the investigation proceeded, they informed 9 personnel of their Article 31B rights prior to conducting additional follow-up interviews. Yeah, you know you done fucked up when you're getting that. All right. So, on October 2nd, the Connecticut grounded with an uncharted bathymetric feature.
Which,
Let's see
for
now.
those unfamiliar with the term, yeah, that's an undersea mountain.
While operating submerged in a poorly surveyed area in international waters, this mishap was preventable. No fucking shit.
Huh.
It resulted from an accumulation of errors and omissions in the navigation planning, watch team execution, and risk management that fell far below the U.S. Navy standards. I think they've
You mean like
come across.
you're not talking about like the hours and hours and hours and hours of the QM just ignoring the fact they didn't get any sounding.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Ted.
Surface shit.
Oh no.
Bump into shit.
What was the? It was the Greenville that was the sub that did the emergency blow and took out the Japanese fishing vessel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greenville? I think this might actually come across as almost beating that bar of low standards.
No, because we were backing
That was-
out from naval ports and backed into a merchant ship.
Yeah, it was the Greenville was a minor error compared to what happened here. Trust me.
Yeah. Okay. Injuries on board were relatively minor. I don't know if a broken scapula is actually minor, but
What they're saying by saying
there's
minor,
no death.
no death, no major, no dismemberment, so
Yeah,
no
I
loss
know.
of limb or life.
I said minor, not minor.
Well, they
And-
ran into a what was it? Uncharted bathyoscopic feature at probably around 24 knots.
Somewhere between 16 and 24. They can't confirm the actual speed, but yeah. I would venture to guess closer to the higher speed. But they did it with a 1 degree up angle, so they grazed it.
Using the term graze very loosely.
Just a little bit. There's a little sarcasm there.
Just a little bit.
The Connecticut will be unavailable for operations for an extended period of time due to the damage sustained during the grounding.
No
Can't
shit.
imagine why.
Oh.
Wonder why.
What?
All
Wait,
right.
wait. Out of all of this, the interesting part, scroll back up. The propulsion plant was not affected. So everything from the reactor back to the prop was fine.
Oh, yeah.
But
It was.
that's not what they thought initially.
No, they were concerned about that.
And that was a valid concern, but I'm imagining maybe it's in here. I haven't seen this one particular one. So.
Okay, so I always skip the point 1 because that's irrelevant to everything, really. But my concern about this whole thing is this the most, at the time, was this the most up-to-date version of the voyage management system? And do they still use paper charts? That's what I really need to know.
Probably and no. If
That's
I
what I'm
remember
assuming.
right.
That's what I'm assuming because they were bringing out the voyage management system when I was getting out. So, but hey, I know this one. This was my friend. All right. So, do I need to go over the commanding duties, commanding officers' duties and responsibilities?
No, don't need the CO, don't need the XO.
So, don't need the cob.
Maybe go over Nav.
Maybe. I would go over Cobb and Nav both because they would be both
Cob has nothing to do with this.
responsible to that.
Well, so you wished. The Cobb is just the Command Master Chief. It's just same term, well, same position, different terminology.
Well, I understand that, but who was standing over the helm? That's my question.
That's where you get into the Nav team.
Comms of whoever's manning the radar that would have caused the collision.
Radar?
Radar underwater?
or whatever. Sonar.
Sonar.
Yeah, sonar. Whatever.
Sonar.
You know what I'm talking.
Oh,
saying.
we'll get to
It
him.
was-
We'll
it
get
was
to
We'll
their
get.
job,
They'll,
so
they'll
we-
get there.
we don't
We'll
do
get there.
something.
I'll get there.
Oh,
Again, if you have bosun's mates, you wouldn't have this problem.
I would
Again.
suspect to say that if there were boatsmen's mates aboard part of this nav team, it would have been even worse.
Yes.
Not necessarily. We could have them all up in the front of the bow, and they could have cushioned.
Oh no! It would have looked like my little brother ramming my dad's truck into the gate. There's a big gash along the side of my dad's truck. That's what
what happened
Connecticut
was-
would have looked like.
Anyways, so because there are so few submariners actually amongst everything, let's make sure that people know what the navigator, what their responsibilities actually are underway. Because it's actually not much different than an aircraft carrier, just a slightly different environment.
Yeah, so the navigator is responsible for the safe navigation and piloting of the ship, and for the leader of the navigation and operations department, or NavOps. It's navigation, obviously navigation. Operations is basically your radio men. So, again, repeat of here. The nav reports to the CO in all matters pertaining to safe navigation and piloting. The navigator should evaluate the chart pedigree, e.g., the survey quality, the age of the edition, etc., and recommend to the CO when additional watch standards should be stationed. When determining an appropriate fix or position interval, the nav should consider the bottom slope, the ship's maneuverability characteristics, i.e., the tactical diameter, the watch standard's proficiency at interpreting and plotting bottom sounder and navigational data, and distance to navigational hazards and boundaries. The commanding officer's safe operating envelope, COSOE, depth, and speed limits should also be in the analysis for figuring the factors when submerged. So what they're saying here in this point 18 is basically when you're underway, you have a certain amount of time between position intervals and when you get a GPS fix. And it's on most fast boats, it radiates out in a cone from a position of uncertainty circle. And methinks that they didn't get a good GPS fix before or during this watch section, based on how far away they were when they collided. Or grounded, I should say. The Submarine Operations Manual, SOM, which came out as a result of the San Francisco grounding, states that the good navigator remains constantly alert, continuously questions the position information and the reliability of the chart, and anticipates danger before it arises. The good navigator not only knows his current situation and its uncertainties, but thinks ahead. Sorry. I could not help read that actual condescension in the text because you know he wrote it with that tone.
Especially after what happened to the San Francisco.
Yeah. And basically what the SOM did is when I was in, there was like half a dozen different navigation operations manuals that all told you things, and you had to know what in situation one which text did what, and so on and so forth. And the SOM just kind of like consolidated all of that. I've been part of many of these. The required brief for planning the track, what areas of water you own when, and all that fun stuff. And I hate giving those presentations. Because it's never the nav that does it. It's never one of the junior officers that does it. It's always the goddamn fucking quartermasters. Now, the one position that I'm unfamiliar with, unfamiliar with in the sense that we use it in a different way. Nav Supervisors. Now, my understanding of Nav Supervisors is basically it's a redundant position serving over the quartermaster in restricted waters. That's how we used it. Or Nav Center Supervisor. So those are the two ways we used it. But I don't know how it pertained to a fast boat or to specifically the watch section of the Connecticut. So This is a fun one. The operations officer, which is also supposed to be the navigator. Could also be delegated to a JO, but generally it still falls under the NAV's jobs.
Did it mention earlier about this? Because this actually was, they assigned the navigation officer from the USS
Toledo.
Toledo.
Yeah. They don't mention it here just yet. It's a little further on.
And this was added because of previous issues.
Yes. The ANAV is the enlisted assistant to the navigator. He's basically your most senior quartermaster, and he's responsible for basically making sure the quartermasters know what the fuck they're doing and that we're using the accurate charts and basically the first check. So the way we do it, or at least the way we did it, because we did it on paper charts, is we would get our assigned water space about the beginning of our refit period. We'd start prepping all our charts for piloting in and out and start planning what charts we're going to need to use when and where based on our water space management. And we start planning tracks because we might own a space of water for a month. So, you can zigzag and write whatever the hell you want. Although it has to be tasteful.
So no penises that anyone could see. So using crew as a template is fine.
So nothing that Echoes would write.
Well,
Got
the
it.
thing with using crew is you only need 1 point.
Hey,
Anyway, so as the quartermasters, we would when it comes to a chart, we would lay down the track. We do all the sounding, the information that we need to do, plotting red and yellow soundings, etc., and then pass it up to the ANAV for him to review the chart. The ANAV would review the chart, and if there was corrections need to be made, send back down to us, and then we would make his corrections. And then if he approved it, he'd send it up to the NAV, and repeat this process all the way up and down through the chain of command from the ANAV, NAVs, XO, and CO. Pretty simple stuff, right? So the ANAV assists the NAV in all navigation functions, and the ANAV is supposed to review the logs and reports at least daily to ensure completeness, neatness, and accuracy, addressing noted errors and omissions. I wonder why that's
That should be
there.
highlighted.
Yeah. And if there's a correction that needs to be made, he should annotate. And what they mean by appropriately annotate is using the deck log and making sure we know the corrections there. So that way the captain or the CEO or the captain or CEO, the CEO or XO or the NAV can make sure that the appropriate officer corrects and initials their entries. So the operations safety officer is an actual spillover from the San Francisco as well. It's basically meant as a senior JO that's used to make sure that you're following lessons learned and things like that. But again, it's at the discretion of the CO that they independently assess safe operations. So, and anything else?
My initial thought was, I wonder if the CO actually assigned anyone to do that.
Oh, he did, but he didn't allow them to do it. He assigned somebody the position, but never let them work.
but if the waters they were in was basically uncharted, how are they supposed to navigate that?
Oh no,
We'll get no.
That's the neat part. You don't.
No. They actually, when we get to the chain of events that led up to the incident, you'll understand why it was plainly said this was avoidable. This was preventable.
Oh, boy.
I'm pretty sure the start of this, it said the waters were not charted or they weren't charted well or something.
Well, no. So this was the specific feature that they hit was not on the chart. But there were other issues with the charts that they were using that we're going to get into. So
This wasn't a single point of failure. This was a multiple point of failure.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep. So, and the reason why I was questioning the nav suit position here, something's wrong here, unless this was a former ET2.
But even then, look at that position on the next watch. It's a chief.
I know. That's what I'm thinking.
And then the ANAV.
I know.
Ooh.
The ANAV was the off watch. So you have 2 ET2s being QMOWs under, assuming another QM style chief, the ANAV, and a third class. The third class must have been having some fun. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh boy.
Now again, if I'm understanding it correctly, this is only if they're in quote unquote restricted waters. So, say la vie.
Still odd that it's a third and not a first.
Or a minimum a second.
Yeah, a senior second.
Yeah. So, the harder okay, so the sections, as Subbrief mentions, when we're underway, we operate in Zulu time, not in the local time zones, which sucks when it comes time for. Although they have 8-hour watch sections, so they got it easy. They don't have that constant rotation.
I would be rather hard pressed to say la vie.
So,
that just does not
all the
sound...
watch standers here were qualified for their position, so they had passed all their appropriate boards and everything.
Okay.
It is. I mean, it's not uncommon to see, but it is interesting to see a first class as a dive.
Yeah, that is
It's
odd.
uncommon, but
It's not common, but it's not unheard of.
It's usually either more typically senior chiefs, master chiefs, or JOs.
Okay. Or a chief on a trident.
Yeah.
Basically, once you're a chief,
Most time our chiefs, on ours, most chiefs were standing chief of the watches.
Yeah.
God.
most of our first classes were chief of the watch, and
We also had a grand total of 12 chiefs, I think.
yeah. So the command duty officer, this one is not an actual like official watch. It's just basically the XO takes over while the captain is not available. So if the captain has a standing order that he's not to be disturbed from
this time to this time.
Yeah, the XO will have to be up and stand that watch, or a senior officer like the Eng or the Nav, depending on the type of ship. Will have to be the command duty officer, and so when the officer deck's like, hey, I want to go to periscope depth, they go to the command duty officer for permission to do that outside of whatever the night standing orders stay. So.
For a bit of frame of reference on the carrier, every command duty officer that was on duty when I was aboard ship was one of the department heads.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the ones who stood that watch.
Yep. So this is a term you'll want to get used to: pre-overseas movement evaluation, or POM eval. So, because that's how I'm going to say it. So, and then officer deck is obviously the officer deck, the one in charge of the ship while standing watch. He represents the CO's interests, but at the same time, he still has to ask the CO for permission for certain things that are outside of normal operations, or that he wasn't directed by the CO to do via night orders. Quartermaster of the watch's responsibility is the safe navigation of the ship. Even if the QMOW is ever in doubt or uncertain about the ship's position or safety, the QMOW shall notify the OOD, NAV, and ANAV in that order.
Not just notify, immediately notify.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Remember that, everybody. Remember what he just said.
Immediately notify. Roger.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and with this part, especially because of this part.
Yeah. When the fathometer runs continuously, absent a dedicated fathometer watch, usually a junior sonar tech, because they got nothing better to do. Well, quartermaster is one word there, King crew there. So, the QMOW shall routinely monitor the fathometer readout and trace to identify unexpected bottom contours and trends and take action as required. The beauty of these fathometers is they have this nice little paper trace that you can set and it'll follow along. It's almost like you can look over and see, oh, hey, might
That
need
don't
to,
look right.
Hey, Officer Deck, we might want to go up a little bit. The QMW must be familiar with the ship's track, expected soundings. Don't worry about bathymetry. It's soundings. That's what we want. And is regularly required to carefully review chart and plan track dead reckoning area of operation and conduct a running evaluation of the fathometer trace, i.e., look the fuck over at it, make sure it's working. The QMW must notify the OD, ANAV, and NAV when the soundings do not correlate with the ship's track. The QMW must check the total water depth logged versus the charted water depth and notify the OOD, the and the NAV whenever the log total water depth does not agree with the charted soundings in accordance with our op orders from ComSub Blank, ComSub Pack. Anyways, what they're getting at is, so like if you have a sounding that is, you're operating in an area of 2,000 fathoms, and you get something that at your depth, the sounding comes up as 10% off, shallower, basically, you need to call that out as does not check with the chart and then take another sounding. Because it might be just a little unknown seamount starting to form that causes that, and you go back to your normal path. Other times it could be an indication that you're actually coming up on a large gradient of a seamount. And yeah. So fun. All right. So pre-deployment, key personnel. On the 6th of August, 2019, the Squadron Commodore sent a letter of his expectations to the prospective CEO of Connecticut. And this is standard practice. I wonder why. It's not like it's a job or anything. 2 days later, he becomes the actual CEO of the Connecticut and was in command for 26 months at the time of his grounding. This is kind of irrelevant for the most part, in my opinion, as who came on board when, with the one exception of this guy, because he was on board before.
Wait, on board before? So this is a return?
Yeah. So if you scroll down here, number 6, the quartermaster of the watch during the grounding was previously qualified as a QMOW on board the Connecticut during a workup and execution of an ICEX in March of 2020.
Ah.
So he was there a year and some change before.
Oh, and then probably went to a school, then came back.
Either went to a school or he was from another ship, got qualified on the Connecticut because his ship was in dry dock or something, and then either ship was still in dry dock and they needed an extra QMOW, or his command could spare another QMOW and they sent him back. So
yeah, you sub guys do that weird rider shit.
Yep. So pretty much standard operations for the time. 67% away from your home port, 33% in home port. Standard op tempo. And they even conducted a CRE, formerly known as a TRE. Black. Oh, here we go. Participated in an ICEX. They went to the submarine trading facility in San Diego, where they conducted an intermediate pre-deployment training session, or IPDT. And they basically, what it is they go over their last evals, so whatever their last major mission was, ComSub Pack guidance in case something else happened to another boat, core competencies, i.e. your basic seamanship and all that other stuff, mission areas, recent ship's operations, the captain's desires for how he wants to see how he wants to see this to go and everything, And then recent deployment lesson learned, i.e., what did you fail on your CRE or what did you fail on your ORS or whatever else. This is my favorite part. While they were in there doing that, the squadron commodore formally counseled the CO via a letter of performance. The letter addressed, quote, inadequate supervisory oversight, ineffective accountability practices, and superficial self-assessment, end quote.
Oh no.
All this will sound very familiar later on in the story.
Oh boy.
And how did Subbrief put it? Basically, the superficial assessment is like, yeah, here's what we did wrong. Here's how we fix it. Oh, the trainers are gone? Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it was basically, it's one thing for submariners to have the attitude that they're shit hot and no one's better because, well, you guys are in a very stringent, very select group of sailors.
Yes, we are.
But they took it to another extreme.
Yes, they did. All right, so black. Big black and bolded here. Okay. Peacetime surge deployments could conduct on short notice. Blah. Basically, somewhere in here they were talking about how this was a requested mission, apparently. Black. On February 16th, the squadron Commodore sent a formal letter of instruction to the CO, directly directing him to address the command's overall performance, lack of improvement, and reluctance to accept feedback.
So they requested this mission so they could perform it half-assed?
What? No. So the way a surge deployment for the Navy works is if you have a boat or a ship that has just come back from a regular deployment, they will remain in what's called a surge status because they've already gone out and done the job, so they're already trained, qualified, and ready to go. So if something comes up and they need a quick turnaround, that's who's going back out. So one of those requests came in, so the Connecticut had to go back out shortly after a more regular deployment.
Yep.
Okay.
We're also getting very close to a point that's really fucked up, in my opinion. But
oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
So then they conducted an advanced pre-deployment training, which is basically the same thing as the one before. The Pure Elysian and Palmyval. On April 14th, 2021, the Connecticut alighted with the pier while mooring at Naval Base Point Loma.
Do we
scrape paint?
Do we want to go over the difference in the terms between a collision and alignment and and what was
so basically here? I'll stop presenting for a second and put on my camera here really quick.
Alighted just means you hit the pier.
Well, it's more fun when you make a visual demonstration, though, Tech. So you have ship 1, ship 2, and they collide. That's a collision. You have the pier.
Two movable objects is a collision.
You have a ship. This can't. It's like our favorite radio communication between the U.S. aircraft carrier and the Spanish lighthouse.
There are so many. There are so many different variations to that, but yeah. And Elysian is movable ship versus immovable object.
Yes.
Surfaced object.
No, it can technically also be like if they scraped sideways instead of forward and under, it would have been an Elysian, not a grounding. So, yeah. So, back to this. Before departing, the Connecticut conducted a safety sound down to address deficiencies noted by the command level critique of the Pure Elysian. And they don't mean necessarily the command of the submarine level critique.
Squadron level commander critique.
So the safety stand down, the training was various topics including danger recognition, risk management, formality and communications, and basic watchstanding.
Yeah, this not a good thing when they have to go over that basic shit.
So on the
You gotta be
17th
really,
of April.
really fucked up to fuck that shit up.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
So
That's
on the
embarrassing.
17th, 3 days later, the squadron directed an investigation. They gave it to a lieutenant commander who's probably on either a short rotation from being an XO before he gets to go to school to be a CO, or he's actually working on his CO qualifications. Either way. Oh no, this is the navigator. Never mind.
Well, yeah, this is the navigator who was sent as ops.
Yeah. From the Toledo. But yeah, so from the 17th or from the 7th of May to the 13th of May, they conducted a palm eval. More black, colorless. Yeah. Actually, it's all colors, I should say. All right, so this is my favorite part. On May 18th, the investigating officer completed his command investigation into the pier elision. He opined that the elision could have been prevented with early, decisive action and recommended that the CO, XO, the navigator, the officer of the deck, and the ANAV receive administrative or disciplinary actions for dereliction of duty.
No shit. All right.
Okay, now the officer of the deck for this incident was the weapons officer.
Oh no.
Oh wait, he was just the MM, right? Master of Arms?
No, Weps is the Weapons Department Division Officer.
Department head, not a division.
Department head.
Well,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Department head for the FTs, STs, and torpedo men, and missile techs.
He said torpedo.
Well, I'm not going to call them MMWs because that's just
stupid.
All right, so notice the date here, and that it was the investigating officer completed his investigation. The next day, the squadron commodore briefed COMSA PAC and CTF 74 on the Connecticut's deployment readiness, including performance and trends of operational fundamentals. So this is the Commodore saying, I briefed Sub PAC and CTF 74 on this incident that happened. And I gave them the information from the investigating officer. But did you? Maybe you didn't want to deal with them anymore.
I don't know, because this is the part where I went, what the fuck? Because like everything was lined up for him to proceed with like disciplinary action and signing off on it.
What?
Then he just meets with Com Sub Pack and suddenly everything just is okay. It's like, what did Com Sub Pack say to him? That's my question.
Well, not just Com Sub Pack, but CTF 74 was involved too. I've seen their offices. They're based out of Japan.
Yep.
But here's a question. So you have two senior admirals talking to this Commodore, and the Commodore rotated out of the position, a couple weeks later, if even that?
A couple days.
Yeah.
Here's the timeline. So on the 19th, he talked to them. On the 20th, he endorses the investigation, which means he signs off as the investigation is complete and concurs with the investigating officer's findings of facts and opinions and recommendations. But he determined, quote, while this investigation revealed degraded standards in the navigation, planning, poor seamanship, and ineffective command and control, it represents an anomalous performance and not a systematic failure, end quote.
Damn.
Oh, well, it gets better.
Well, the addition.
He added, quote, I observed a safe landing from the bridge of the USS Connecticut on the 13th of May, 2021, indicating an appropriate reflection of reflection and training of the crew. With the completion of the Palm Eval on May 14th, I certify the safe navigation of the ship through all phases of submarine operation, end quote. On the next day, hold on. On the next day, the 21st of May, Commodore Blank is relieved by Commodore Blank as the CSDS-5 Commodore.
What a shit show.
Oh,
welcome to the Navy.
So this is striking me that because the Commodore lined up that he was really having issues. He was ready to move forward. He meets with 2 senior admirals, suddenly changes his mind about all this stuff, basically, and then leaves. Something is fucking fishy.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. I can feel it.
Like, no one on that ship should have been on that ship when it was out at sea.
That ship should not have gone out
It
to
should never
sea.
left.
Period.
Yeah, exactly. It should never have fucking left.
All right. So now, Subbrief also mentioned that this could have been a situation where timing just lined up just right, where it's a standard, change of command, and not a
punitive thing.
Not a punitive thing, because unfortunately they have their names redacted, so we can't go and verify who they were at what time and blah blah blah. I mean, we could.
We know what the dates are. We know what the dates are, and the commands of these things are public records, so it would be really fucking easy to find out.
If we wanted to find out if it was a scheduled one, though, we'd have to actually be a little more.
Well, yeah, you would know if it's good. Well, you could guess by the time frame, though.
Yeah, you'd have to go back to when so and so left here. When did he arrive? So. Anyways, also on the 21st of May, ComSub PAC recommended to the Third Fleet that the Connecticut be certified for deployment. ComSub PAC stated that the Connecticut was on plan to complete the operational fundamentals upgrade before deployment, and that the CSDS-5 would coordinate with CTF-74 to conduct a mid-deployment check ride to monitor training progress. They're problem children. We're working with them to get this all squared away with CTF-74. Just go ahead and sign off on this. Just sign here, sir.
That's unbelievable.
Well, the sad thing is I think the ComSub PAC and the Third Fleet are in the same general area in Pearl. So it wouldn't be too hard for him.
They all play golf together,
Third Fleet, Third Fleet's offices are in Pearl.
Yep. So on the 24th of May, 3 days later, Third Fleet certified it. No clue, but it is whatever. On the 25th of May, the new Commodore formally canceled the COXO Nav, WEPS, and ANAV to correct the deficiencies noted in the Pure Elision investigation. On the 26th of May, Connecticut completed all pre-deployment repairs to include returning the forward bottom sounder to fully operational status.
Keep that in mind.
On the 27th of May, the Connecticut deployed ahead of schedule.
Oh, no.
On or about the 24th of June, they sent out... No, it wasn't May. Never mind. Or June. I was thinking this is the part where they send out the people the riders to check in on them. But on the 24th of June, SubPAC endorsed the final investigation findings. CTF stated that he was not aware of the Pure Elision or Associated Command investigation prior to Connecticut.
Something spelled funny there.
If you say so.
So
I don't know what happened.
Speculation time, just for the fun of it. So remember how the previous Commodore was talking to ComSubPAC and CTF-74? Bet you he talked to SubPAC before he talked to CTF-74. And SubPAC's like, no, shush, shush, hush, hush. We'll deal with this later. And then just basically, they just had a minor incident. We've reprimanded them. We've done everything, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to, we're just going to ask that you send out some riders to go with them just to do a mid-check, like we would any other type of deployment, etc.
Wow.
All colors, all colors, all colors. The ship's force coordinated with the IMA to troubleshoot and repair forward bottom center throughout the deployment with appropriate technical assistance. Keep note of that. This footnote here about the forward bottom center.
But see, I thought it was mechanical error, but now it's like the whole fucking ship error.
I just feel all kinds of disappointment in regards to this.
Oh, it gets better.
Oh, wait.
And I have next to no idea of what's being discussed.
There's some juicy stuff coming up, so just keep...
Oh, no.
During the check ride, the CSDS-5 evaluation of Connecticut's response to simulated loss of sounding and simulated red and yellow sounding drills as satisfactory. However, the evaluation team noted that the watchstanders did not fully investigate why the ship was receiving simulated anomalous soundings. The
Simulated?
What?
Yeah, you can't actually. Hold on just a second.
Simulated?
Well, okay, so they're talking about a training thing.
Oh, they got a set effect. Okay, I see what they're saying.
Well, because it's not just some systems you can have a test and training code in there where it'll actually give you something on the display, but oftentimes it'll literally be a test administrator, one of the observers, literally putting a sticky note in front of the watchstander's face telling them what they see.
Oh.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah, so it's just it's the proctors being like, okay, watchstander, you're seeing what's there.
Yeah.
Well, so you have different states of readiness on the sub, whereas on service ships it's all or nothing. They have, what would you say, Tech? Half a dozen different states of readiness that changes the watchstanding requirements.
Oh yeah, I mean you have you have maneuvering watches. You have different. You may have people coming on when you're on the surface, vice when you're submerged, or when you're at periscope states, that's for submerged, or when you're, you have your typical general quarters type stuff and things. I mean, it's there's a lot.
Yeah, there is.
But yeah, they are usually graded as sat or unsat.
Deep submergence. You have more watch stations that come on in deep submergence.
Oh, let's not talk about deep submergence, please.
You don't know nothing about that, Nicky. What you talking about?
Oh, I know plenty about deep submergence.
I feel like that's a phrasing.
Yeah, but see, the real
Maybe
person
it's
who wouldn't know
metaphor, maybe
anything
it's
about
not.
that is King. King would not know anything about deep submergence because he won't know how to get deep into anything.
He's very shallow. Saying
I'm the king of deep submergence, damn it.
Yeah.
Surface
You
level
submerge
individual.
and you never
No.
come back up again.
No, crew. We're talking about the one going deep, not the one. Never mind. No, I don't want to expose your kink if you don't want others to know, crew.
Hey, go for it. It's okay. We don't kink shame you.
Okay, it's just I didn't know how many other people knew just how far you're willing to take it.
Only on weekends, bro. Only on weekends. Come on now.
Yeah.
It's the weekend.
Yes,
There's
it
a reason why they
is.
call it Weekend Warrior.
But yeah,
Speaking of Weekend Warriors, whatever happened to Tasty?
he's in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, he's stationed in Japan. So him being there, he's only going to be actually in his home port maybe 20-25% of the time.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I've heard that some rather gnarly shit happened over there. I'm not at liberty to discuss because he's not at liberty to discuss. But
Oh,
I've
okay.
heard from a little birdie, so to speak.
Gotcha.
I think I heard about that incident too because a friend of mine's a first class on the carrier over there.
Oh, yeah, little birdie is in the server, so you could probably tell who that is.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, no, it's bad.
Gotcha. We'll leave it at that. All right.
You know what? This incident happened fucking... Oh, God, how long ago was it?
Sorry about that.
See, I got there late 2005. 5. Fuck. Yeah, we're at almost 17 years ago now when this incident occurred. But yeah,
San Francisco?
No. When I got to Japan, within a couple months of being there, while the ship was in port, some dumbass from air department out in town, drunk, asked some old Japanese national lady at a train station for some change. She said no, tried to get away. Dumbass beat the ever-living fuck out of her, killed her over the equivalent of $51.
Oh, why?
How?
Drunk.
I've not heard of this. What the fuck? When did this happen?
Late 2005, early 2006.
Oh, we was on deployment then. Okay. Holy shit.
So
I was just a wee lad.
Yeah. It was during the first winter import that I was with the Kitty Hawk.
So shall I go over and explain the simulation?
Yeah.
Well, I actually quickly went over it. It's depending on the system. The test proctor, the evaluation proctor, would either have a prompt come up on the display, like some sonar systems can do, or literally put like a sticky note in front of the watchstander's face of the reading that they want them to react to.
That the latter of the two is the accurate one for this.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that right now. But yeah, we can't actually make it do that without changing the mode, and that could put the ship in serious danger. So that's why we do the sticky notes. And a lot of times it's not even like a specific number. It's yellow sounding, red sounding, and red Sharpie on a yellow background. They also did not notice any other deficiencies in navigation. So peak to perform, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay. Navigational planning. There are 3 fundamental causes for submarine groundings. First are that a submarine may ground on an uncharted hazard. The second is the submarine's position may be in error and such that the charted hazard is not anticipated. Third is due to a series of planning and watchstanding errors, the submarine may run into a charted grounding hazard. Or 4, all of the above.
Well, I was going to say the third kind of includes the other 2, because you can have a hazard area to where, hey, don't go here because we don't know exactly what's there. And as a bit of that, you're going to have something uncharted as a hazard that you could run into. You could have the first condition. And then the second one is, if your charts aren't being kept up to date and you're not doing your fixes, you're going to be in the second one.
Well, my point about all the above is the third is actually due to the first part of this, due to a series of planning and watchstanding errors, yes. However, the last part, they didn't run into a charted hazard. It should have been anticipated as an uncharted hazard, but it was not charted. So, semantics, but you know.
How often is it that they run aground due to equipment error?
Not very often.
Well, depends on the type of submarine. I'll tell you that right now. Like I said at the beginning, on fast boats, they are usually only operating with one good gyro navigator. They have a second that's not as reliable as a backup, if in case the first one goes down. But they operate through what's called all submarines operate through what's called a area of uncertainty or circle of uncertainty around your ship's position, where you anticipate to be within that circle on the track. The problem is when you're using only one gyro navigator, that circle is ever expanding, and you are required to get GPS fixes every so often to reset that circle down to the bare minimum. And based on everything that I'm reading here,
they didn't do that.
They either didn't get a good fix in the previous watch, just before watch turnover, or it was several hours before the turnover that they got the fix. But I know they got a good one when they got up to the surface.
No shit.
And to be fair, there is frequent times, like this one fast attacks, you could be doing operations where you're not going to get a fix for quite a while.
No, that
can't happen,
is
so.
fair. I mean, I'm not saying that there couldn't have been, but they were also
But there was
doing a
other
hemovac.
issues involved. Yeah.
They were doing a hemovac. I would think they would want to keep on track. But anyways, chart accuracy depends on the accuracy of hydrographic surveys, other data sources used to compile it, and the suitability for its scale for its intended use. Large blank areas' absence of depth contours generally indicate a lack of soundings in that area. Operations in areas with sparse sounding should only be conducted when required and with extreme caution. Omission and reporting errors must also be considered when assessing the accuracy of a chart. Close proximity to hazards necessitate compensatory measures, including carefully controlling course and speed, meticulous planning of the track, and using additional watch standards to support the navigation effort, i.e. going to a modified piloting party. In 2007, the Submarine Force developed the COSOEs as a formal method of communicating the CO's operational intent. They result from previous incidents where submarines failed to operate with due caution, i.e. running with a flank bell into a known underwater mountain.
The San Francisco.
Yeah.
And the Greenville. And all
Several-
of the
the-
recent... Yeah.
The La Jolla in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Let's see. They are to provide these measures are to provide the OOD with unambiguous boundaries within which the watch section may operate without additional CO permission. The COSOE layers consist of speed, submerged depth limits, and including values for red and yellow sounding tripwires. The yellow sounding is a sounding a submarine receives when traveling over the shallowest area associated with the COSOE at the maximum operating depth authorized by the COSOE. Although it is theoretically the minimum expected sounding, the SOM outlines the action upon receipt of a yellow sounding. I take more soundings, double check where you're at, maybe go shallower and get a fix if you can. The red sounding is established as a minimum acceptable depth beneath the keel that is half the value of the yellow sounding or 100 fathoms, whichever is less. At the receipt of a red sounding indicates the ship is too close to the bottom and demands immediate and assertive action on behalf of the OOD to keep the ship safe from grounding. San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco. During the Palmy-Val, CSDS-5 emphasized the importance of thoughtfully developing COCs, sounding tripwires, instead of using standard values. Note that the CO signed the Nav plan paperwork on the 30th of September and was approved in VMS on October 1st. And this will be important here in a minute. More San Francisco, yada, yada, yada. Information. Screenshot of something. Voyage planning. You don't need to know. I don't need to know. At approximately 0900 Zulu on the 1st of October, the CO, XO, ANAV, WEPS, Eng Ops Acoustic Intelligence Specialist Chief, who is actually a sonar technician, Chief Petty Officer, and the COB conducted a planning meeting to discuss the voyage planning.
Details we don't need to know because it relates to where they were.
The ANAV ordered the watch team to develop a supporting track as a temporary route in the VMS. There are times when temporary routes are prudent, and I hate them. Now there are times where when we did it, most of the time it's because we were running drills longer than we should have, or we did something earlier on in our water space that put us behind on the track, and we would have to surface and get into our next operating area before we could submerge again. So what do you do when you have a track that's a giant triangle point? You cut across the triangle and complete it, you know? So, but again, those are things that still go through standard approval processes. So, the portions of the ocean floor in the Kinetics operating area were surveyed, but other portions were not surveyed for bathymetry. Understanding the chart's pedigree, accuracy of information, inclusive dates of data, data quality, map compilation dates is critical to safe navigation. The ANAV was aware that the quote swept areas end quote were available in the VMS, but he did not utilize this information during the chart evaluation process. What did you send me now, Leon? Oh, that. Okay. Okay, so, but he did not use it. During his interview, the ANAV stated that he believed the soundings were, quote, excellent, end quote, and deeper than charted based on a message from CTF 74. And what he means is based on the, not from CTF 74, the actual admiral, but from the Submarine Operations Office, where their ANAV and quartermasters update chart information and whatnot. So, yeah, about that.
Trying to pass the buck.
Oh, yeah. The CO and NAV were not aware that the sounding data quality and the information on the surveyed, non-surveyed areas is available in the VMS. The CO incorrectly believed that MAT data was available and in use in the area where Connecticut was transiting. MAT data is... Go ahead.
No, continue that thought.
Okay, I was going to say, MAT data is basically the equivalent of what we used to use as highly classified and more detailed data for chart information.
So here's my question stemming from that. CCO and NAV were not aware that sounding data quality and information on surveyed, non-surveyed areas is available in VMS. The NAV didn't know what was in his system. What the fuck?
Yeah, no. And the best part about this is a lot of what's in the VMS that, as I'm reading the unclassified version of this, like always, these are things that we were telling the developers at the time. We would like to have this feature. We would like to have that feature. We would like to know.
We'd like to be able to put these warnings in.
Exactly. We want overlays that we can put in that we can, shape and contour as needed, that type of thing. But
that's actually a thing. There were overlays that were there, but the ANAV had them there, then took them out, which is what the fuck?
Yeah. A temporary route may be used at the discretion of the CO, provided the ship is operating on an approved nav plan and has a process for temporary route evaluation and approval. Again, like we used to do, this is our track. We get behind. We have a process to say, okay, we need to get from here to here in this time. The shortest distance is this way, or but there's this area in the way that we should not go, so we'll make a path around that. So but again, we have the quartermaster of the watch is plotting the ship's position. The off-going quartermaster is plotting that track, getting it set up so the ANAV can come up and approve it. The navigator approves it, the XO and the CO. And sometimes it takes you your full off watch and you don't get any of your 3M stuff done, and then your chief's pissed at you. Sucks.
It sounds like you've had no experience with that.
No, not at all. A temporary route does not take into account all the features and safety checker functionality that is a PIM track that a PIM track does, and has no built-in VMS approval process. This is where I really would like to know if they were actually using paper charts at all in any of this.
It doesn't seem like they were.
No.
I don't believe they were.
I don't believe they were.
It's all electronic at this point.
And VMS... go ahead, crew.
It sounds like they're just winging it.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. In the VMS, the surveyed and non-surveyed areas are displayed when the quote swept areas end quote feature is enabled. The NAV's standing orders required this feature to be enabled, so he knew about it, Jared. He just didn't know he knew about it. MAT is a classified vector-based digital product designed to specifically support safe subsurface navigation. MAT coverage exists. Where MAT coverage exists, MAT is the recommended and preferred navigation product over the DNC and TOD, which are which are basically the digital equivalent of the paper charts that we used to use. MAT data was available for some of the Connecticut's operating area, but unavailable in other areas when transiting on that fateful day. The Connecticut does not have a process for temporary route evaluation and approval.
Yep, they were winging it.
A temporary route was entered into VMS by the watch team. The CO did not conduct a detailed review of the route because he didn't have a process. The temporary route was periodically adjusted by the QMOW. This practice is contrary to the SOM, but it was consistent with the CO's expectations.
A nice way to throw the CO under the bus where he deserves to be.
The CO had no clue what the hell he was doing.
That really wasn't throwing the CO on the bus. I was just pointing at where he was.
No, it was the CO trying to get out from under the bus, and the admiral is sitting there. No.
You stay there.
The Connecticut's temporary route passed through the surveyed and unsurveyed areas on the chart, as evidenced by the swept area shading, and I'm assuming this is a screenshot of that area. That's a big block there, so I'm assuming it's a screenshot of that. Blah blah blah. Transiting towards Okinawa. Blah 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 blah. Probably something to do with somebody's wife cheating on him, and stealing the bank account.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, the STSC.
Oh, there was a speed increase.
Yeah, did not. So what I'm assuming was going on is they were actually probably doing some bathymetric soundings themselves, and the CO increased the speed and didn't tell the sonar chief. The CO desired to transmit material messages to the CTF-74 in sufficient time to either receive the parts during the planned humevac or to be diverted to Guam for import repairs. And some of those parts have to do with the fathometer.
I'm not sure how it works on a submarine, but I know on a ship, when we're steering the ship, your speed has a direct result in how you steer the fucker. Like the slower you go, the harder it is. The faster you go, the easier it is.
Well, really, the speed, the maneuverability really isn't the question here. A Seawolf class is really maneuverable.
Yes.
But the speed is going to be a big factor, which you'll find out later. I don't want to spoil the story. So
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Sometime between, and this is one of my personal favorites of the QMOW here. Sometime between 1600 Zulu and 1700 Zulu on the first, the EXO stationed as the CDO.
Shouldn't that be a log? Shouldn't that have been a log entry?
Hold on, These times are based on an interview with the XO. The ship's deck log does not record the stationing of the CDO on the 1st of October.
Oh, fucking Christ.
At approximately 23:30 Zulu, the watch section harder relieved the watch. Again, some watch standards change over quicker than others. Sometimes you have to go through a slightly longer process to relieve the watch, depending on your job. Reciting the appropriate standing orders and night orders, yada, yada.
Yeah, that's what we had to do. Yeah.
At 0115 Zulu, as part of the cyclical routine, the QMOW attempted to obtain a sounding. Note the word there, attempted.
Here comes the great part.
No.
At 0115 Zulu, the QMOW logged loss of sounding in the fathometer log.
Wait, hold up. They said these motherfuckers were qualified for this job.
Yes.
How are they fucking this up?
Oh, crew, just wait.
Note 31, which is in one of these blacked out areas here. The ship reported that although the aft bottom sounder was fully operational, its operation degraded at speeds above 16 knots. The Navy Technical Reference Publication 3-21.41.15 indicates that it should run normally up to speeds of 24 knots in up to 14,000 or 1,400 fathoms beneath the keel. So if you're going 24 knots and you have at maximum 14
and less than 1,400 fathoms, you should get a reading.
Yeah.
Also note there is a deep and shallow setting on the fathometer too. So
yes.
Keep that in mind, everybody.
Got
We'll
it.
get to that. The SOM requires the electronic cyclical routine be conducted at every position fixed interval. The electronic cyclical routine requires an evaluation of all ship's position sources with respect to the track area. So your gyro navigators, your soundings, and if you're at periscope depth, GPS as well. Generally, you get a position fix from the gyro navigator, a GPS fix, and then you update the gyro navigator with the GPS position. All right. And basically all this black area is to say the QMOW did not take the required actions for loss of sounding because he didn't inform anybody else.
I was going to say, why don't you just scroll to where he informed the COXO or Nav, but that's not actually in here.
Yeah.
No.
Well, let's remember. So that previous stuff, took place at 0115. Here we are a half hour later,
which is about accurate. Every half an hour or so, could be every 15 minutes. As part of the cyclical routine, the QMOW attempted to get a sounding again.
Attempted.
The QMOW did not take the required action for loss of sounding. 15 minutes later at 0200 Zulu, part of a cyclical routine, attempted a sounding. QMOW. Are we seeing a pattern here?
It sounds like this is their first day on the job. Like, what the fuck?
So that was at 02.
So not only has he not informed the officer deck, the CDO doesn't know what's going on, the NAV doesn't know what's going on, nor does the ANAV.
And we're at 2.5 hours into the watch.
With no soundings.
0323 Zulu, the XO secured at CDO. Oh, I wonder how they got that time. It's almost like it was logged in the deck log.
Interesting.
Connecticut did not properly mark 2 underwater danger and underwater hazards locations, or the 5 areas of discolored water as navigational hazards, while navigating southeast of them along a temporary route. The OOD stated in his second interview that he was aware of these charted but unmarked navigation hazards. The OOD typically expected the navigation hazards to be marked with stay out areas that were approved in the nav plan.
Expected them to be marked, which means they weren't.
Now, mind you, this officer of the deck is a full-on nuke, not just like a JO nuke. It's the motherfucking Eng. He has book smarts, but not experience smarts, I guess.
In regards to this here now, if you're flying blind like this, is it allowed, unless you're actually in or during a mission where you aren't allowed to surface at all during that time, to just stay in place until you're able to somehow get your bearings?
Unless mission standards or mission orders tell you not to surface or go to periscope depth, once you're uncertain about where you're at, you are supposed to go to bare minimum periscope depth and get a GPS fix.
Yeah, if you've got an area of uncertainty you're at, you're not going to be able to fix yourself submerged, without at least being at periscope depth to get a GPS fix.
Well, you can. You just have to know that you're kind of in the right area for a PBNZ, a precise bathymetric navigation zone. Doesn't sound like they were, but You can actually fix ship's
There
position.
was so much unknown here. There's no way they would fucking.
Yeah.
Oh no, I know. I'm not saying that.
In other circumstances, you may have been able to.
Yes. So, in the CEO's second interview, while watching the VMS replay, he stated he would normally provide stay-out areas for these types of navigational hazards, but in the absence of stay-out areas, he expected the OOD and his watch team to con around them. So, yeah. While I tell them that they need to have these areas, if for whatever reason those aren't there, I still expect them to be knowledgeable to know to go around them. Still doesn't excuse that it's your responsibility to make sure they're there in the first fucking place.
There's a lot of expectation here and very little execution.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
The grounding.
Jesus Christ.
So, something about navigational hazards. The OOD did not report this navigational hazard to the CEO.
Of course.
Oh no, here's the good part. At 0424, the ANAV directed the on-watch QMOW to remove the red quote stay out end quote area, and the ANAV did not give the QMOW a reason for it as order.
Sure, why the hell not?
So I'm obeying a lawful order. I removed the stay out areas from the VMS tactical layer.
Let me after spending a few hours of failure to getting any soundings, go ahead and removing these stay out areas. Well, why the hell not? Sure.
And then 35 minutes later.
Oh no, hold on. It gets even better.
Oh shit.
Remember, the ANAV, unless he is laying in his rack and happens to have a growler next to him, probably had to go up to the plot to tell him, hey, see those stay out areas? Remove them. Oh, while I'm here, I should probably check your fathometer log while I'm at it.
But didn't.
So, now, I know in some instances, the
at this point in time, there was a fathometer log at least. But.
Yes. Well, a log without information. So is it really a log?
Well, that's better than what's coming.
So, all right. So at 0500, the CO, XO, Nav, Ops, ANAV, COB, and the sonar rider attended a daily operations brief. They also led the operations brief. He did not independently monitor or assess the effectiveness. Okay, that's weird. Don't care. And it just locked me up on it.
It's like NASA's trying to shut you down.
Pretty much. There it goes. All right, so Oso led the brief. He did not independently monitor or assess the effectiveness of the ship's operational plan. The CO did not require nor desire the OSO to perform this duty. So one of the key functions of the OSO is to be that independent reviewer.
And the CO did not let him do it.
And
we don't need you. It's okay. You can go back to the rack or whatever.
Yeah. Now, mind you, the XO only had like an hour and a half.
What could go wrong
before this brief? More information. The tactical layer feature allows operators to add objects to the VMS without unapproving the active nav plan. This process is subject to a third-party review. The Connecticut has a process for developing and approving tactical layers that meet the SOM requirements.
But didn't fucking use it.
So it's not just tactical layers like the navigational tactical layers. You also funnel in fire control and sonar data on targets.
Almost like it's a complete situational of awareness view. Wow.
Oh, it's almost as if that's how it's supposed to work.
Now, somewhere
Crazy.
in here, they're listing a time before the actual collision or the grounding. So, the QMOW reported that to the officer deck that this sounding did not check with the chart. It was the first time the watch team identified that a sounding did not check with chart.
This is a new QMOW, by the way, because we've had a watch change here. So.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah.
Oh, no. Well, this is the harder watch section. So this is the one with the edge where this QMOW qualified on the ISEX as that was done in March of 2020. as QMOW on this ship. He's probably been qualified QMOW before that. He just had to get qualified on
that boat.
Yeah. The fathometer trace indicates soundings did not check with chart from 0518 Zulu to 0540 Zulu. In his interview, the QMOW... Oh, gets better.
Oh,
The
no.
QMOW stated that he obtained 3 consecutive soundings that checked with chart and reported this to the OOD at 5:35. The QMOW did not log these soundings.
Oh boy.
After identifying that the 0530 sounding did not check with the chart, the OOD and QMOW did not assess the trend in the soundings prior to that time. I.e., they didn't go and look at the trace and see that it's almost vertical.
There was no trace.
Well, that's also because they have it in the wrong fucking... Anyways.
Oh,
The CO was unaware... The CO was unaware of the ship's proximity to the navigational hazard. Blah, 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 blah.
Nothing, huh? He's just...
It's
blind
interesting.
everything.
Oh,
And my-
yeah, it hasn't loaded this far. Give me a second.
And mind you, we're only about halfway through.
That's unbelievable. I mean,
We're halfway through this incident.
Through the
Oh, no.
report.
Oh
Through the report.
no! Oh no!
All right. Got it back
Hey.
up here. So,
if I remember correctly, the first ET was a third class, right?
The nav suit.
Yeah. So was he in training, or was that? I don't think that's normal. Was it?
We got no explanation why it was a third class in that position.
usually we flip to second class would be the
That's what I
soup
thought.
and the
Okay. Yeah. All right.
third class would be the QMOW. So
Gotcha.
the OOD did not report the sounding discrepancies to the CEO. The QMOW stated during his interview that after the fathometer trace displayed rapidly shoaling, i.e. near vertical, it subsequently went slightly down and then steadied out with soundings consistently shallower than charted. A nice little plateau. The off-watch
No
hard...
one on that ship has to report or log anything. They're just whatever.
The off-watch harder section, Nav Soup entered the control room after field day. So the Nav Soup, nowhere to be found because he's off cleaning rather than being at his freaking watch.
There you go.
Well, he is a third class during cleaning stations.
Yeah, I know. The OOD identified rapidly shoaling soundings on the fathometer and asked, and I'm just presuming he's asking the Nav Soup, if the fathometer, quote, spiked, end quote.
If they logged shit, they might have known. Fucking A.
CO standing orders, and this isn't just just the CO standing orders. It's all CO standing orders. Require personnel monitoring fathometer to promptly identify when bottom slope trends deviate from expected trends and formally evaluate the chart sounding. And then tell the officer of the deck, hey, we're not where we're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're up to the final moments before the actual event. At 0616, the quartermaster and Nav Soup discussed with the OD shifting the fathometer to transmit in a non-secure mode and attempt another sounding. The QMOW advocated taking a non-secure sounding because the sounding trace had been clear and then trailed off to barely faint trace, i.e. fucking vertical. And it's all has to do with how the computer the computer expects to get a return audio signal from the fathometer going off, hitting the bottom and coming back up. If you have it in deep mode and it comes up a lot shallower, it doesn't know what to do with that. Normally it'll fault and tell you that it's faulting. But that's when you switch it to shallower and then it adjusts the trace. Anyways. The OD stated during his interview that he intended to call the CO to request permission to alter the emissions control lineup and shift fathometer to the non-secure mode. Per the CO's standing order, the officer of the deck does not need the CO's permission to shift the fathometer modes. During his interview, the CEO stated that he expects the OD to shift the fathometer mode when necessary for the safety of the ship. And that there is actually kudos to the CEO, because that's like you need to do your job, officer of the deck.
Yeah, of the CO's expectations, that's one that actually makes sense.
Yep.
But to be fair, I mean, with the amount of incompetence here, this is a management issue.
No, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
The OD stated he was concerned with the shallower than expected soundings, but he did not assess the need to take aggressive action.
Oh,
The OOD did not consider ordering a lower speed. The OOD and dive used a 1 degree up angle to change depth because the ship was concluding field day. The dive was not aware of the shallower than expected soundings. At approximately 0618 Zulu, the sonar supervisor identified a trace near the bow. The trace was classified as biologics. The sonar supervisor stated there was no other contacts.
Yeah,
What this actually was is they were hearing their own submarine's machinery noise bouncing off the bottom, basically.
The
bathymetric feature they were about to run into.
They could have heard the scrambling of the lobsters from the side of the undersea mountain running away because, holy fuck, what is that coming at us?
Giant fucking monster!
I think it was
at
the citizens of Bikini Bottom running away.
You find yourself running into yourself, just stop.
Jared, we all know it was the citizens of Bikini Bottom doing.
Right?
The submarine is going, why are you running? Why are you running?
I am here to give you a hug.
No. The submarine is doing this. The submarine is doing this.
Shall we play a game?
It's kind of telling, though, that the people in charge of it at the time had less of a clue as to what to do than a couple of fucking retards on the stream here, not actually in charge of a multi-million-dollar submarine.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, it all comes down to no one to report anything and no one to log anything, so they had no clue what the fuck was going on. And the ones that were supposed to know what was going on had no clue.
All right, so post-grounding action. So at 0618, it collides with the underwater mountain. The helmsman pulls full rise on the control column because he's in control of the planes. At the 0618, the OOD orders depth of 160 feet and all head standard. The dive does not hear the order depth to 160 feet. At 0619, the digital electromagnetic log, or EDML, lost indication. That's your speedometer on the submarine, by the way. And sonar reported severe degradation from the spherical ray.
I wonder why.
No.
Let me ask you something. For example, on our ship, any speed change or any course change was reported to the helmsman. The helmsman had to then say it back to the person telling him that. If that wasn't done, it was repeated again and again until it was repeated back. You guys don't do that on submarines?
Oh, we do. It's just that when you're colliding with something and you're making a hell of a lot of noise, on top of the fact that you get thrown across control and break your scapula, it's a little
much.
The orders are a little bit left to interpretation at that point.
Also notice there's kind of like different orders going on here than what you have on a surface ship, because like the helmsman's listening to two different people. When he's getting course stuff, he's getting it from the officer deck directly. When he's getting depth stuff, he's getting it from the diving officer of the watch.
Who's also getting it from the officer of the deck.
Who's also getting it. Yes, there's...
That's where confusion came. Yeah. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Based on the this will be fun. Based on the RLGN to GPS offset determined by the Connecticut's first GPS fix on the surface.
Where was that note used?
It was used up here in this.
Oh.
But we'll get to it in a minute. At 0619, the ship achieved a 31-degree up angle. The dive officer of the watch announced, "The ship is going to the surface." The dive officer of the watch grabbed both control columns to assist in positioning the planes to full rise. The lee helm informed the dive that the ship was rigged for high-speed operations and that the bow planes were retracted.
It actually goes back to another issue with having the helmsman do the rise. He would be controlling the bow planes.
Unless the lee helm was rigged over to...
Maybe, yeah.
The lee helm, again, the lee helm...
But anyway, yeah, the bow planes would be pinned at 0, so...
Yeah, normally the lee helm would control the stern planes while the helmsman would control the bow planes, or if rigged at high speed, he would focus on just controlling the ship's direction. That's it. But for field day at high speed, they're going to give it to the helmsman because, that lee helm could be cleaning something.
I guess that's a valid point now I'm thinking about it.
Chief of the watch sounded the collision alarm at 0619 and made a 1MC announcement for all watch standards to report damage to control room and stood by to conduct an EMBT below. And then during the ascent, the fire control technician of the watch and sonar supervisor aligned their equipment for periscope depth operations. At 0619, the officer deck ordered all stop to reduce the ascent rate and to enable the diving officer of the watch to reach the ordered depth of 160 feet without going shallower. The dive did not receive or acknowledge this order.
Which ironically is actually a good thing in retrospect. But we'll get
Yes. At the same time, the CO is entering the control room, made a 1MC announcement that the ship has had a collision or an elision in order personnel to report any damage flooding throughout the ship. Connecticut proceeded past 160 feet towards the surface. The ship roached and reached a depth of 36 feet. The WEPS, who is the offgoing officer of the deck, raised and manned the number 2 periscope. And the Connecticut obtained a GPS fix with a 1,200-yard offset to the northwest from the Connecticut's plotted RLGM position to GPS. Now, the average distance of a nautical mile is considered 2,000 yards. It's a little bit more than that, but for safety reasons, we use 2,000 yards. How far off are we if we're off by 1,200 yards?
About 6 miles.
0.6 miles.
0.6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
60%
little
of a nautical mile.
Little over a half mile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's quite a bit outside of...
Think about it this way, everyone. You're trying to go home blindfolded. And you think you're outside of your front door, but really, you're almost 3/4 of a mile away.
Think of it this way.
It turns out you're knocking on the chief of police's door.
Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of thing that happens when you're blindfolded and racing your car down the road, and the guy who's supposed to be telling you where you're at's not really paying attention to shit.
Not doing shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Something's not right here.
Something's amiss.
Now, when we emergency blow the ballast tanks, that's a lot of water gets pushed out, but you still have all the other additional ballast that we have on board. The chief of the watch, doing what he's supposed to, attempt to deballast the ship, because you're already at the surface, you might as well make sure you stay at the surface. I was trying to pump water off the tank, and it was aligned properly, but it failed to pump. Yay. The CM relieved the OOD. I have no clue what the CM is. I suppose it's supposed to be CO. That makes no sense. And the assistant engineer was stationed as the CM.
What is the CM?
Maybe a control room.
So
maybe that might be a control room. Anyways. At 0623, the ship's speed dropped to approximately 0 knots, and the ship's depth began to increase due to the inability to deballast the ship. The chief of the watch recommended cross-connecting the trim and drain system to deballast the ship. Depth control was not used to discharge water overboard.
There's a big problem with that. Just to interrupt, big problem. you've emergency blown the tanks and you're sinking, there's something wrong.
Yep. The chief of the watch and the diving officer of the watch recommended increasing speed to maintain the ship broach. The OD ordered all ahead 2/3, followed by all ahead standard. At 0624, the WEPs relieved the officer of the deck. At 0624, the depth of the Connecticut was 74 feet and increasing. The chief of the well, actually no, they hadn't done their emergency blow yet.
So they were
That's
at
right.
74 feet below
Oh, okay.
sea and dropping.
Yeah. So what happened
Yeah.
is they were still full of their ballast tanks. I forgot the chief of the watch was standing by to do it. He hadn't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
Then the CO ordered the MBT, and then they went to surface and they prepared to surface. At that time, also a watchstander in the PLO bay, the propulsion lube oil bay, incorrectly reported a loss of PLO. And then the engineering officer of the watch identified and reported the lost PLO did not occur. What had happened was that.
I want to explain this one because this is fun.
Oh no!
There's not a lot of storage space on a sub. They had drums of cooking oil stored back in the shaft alley and PLO area. So when they hit, those a couple of those 5-gallon jugs ruptured. The watchstander in the area thought it was lube oil, not cooking oil.
Oh,
Called out the lube oil loss out of reaction because, oh shit, we hit something. Now there's oil all over the place. It's got to be from the propulsion plant.
Which is fair, because I mean, if you're, the propulsion lube oil bay on this thing, you're talking about, this is the area under the main reduction gear. So this is the lubrication system that keeps those reduction gears, which is effectively the boat's transmission.
Yeah.
Lubricator.
Did they do anything right in the ship? Like anything at all right?
This watchstander.
No, this was right because you secure it because, like, if
it's better
if
to
you
call
damage
it away.
that, you're dead in the water. It's better to call it there, figure out what's going on, and then clear it than to ignore it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one of the few areas they actually did what they were supposed to and should have, but it's a whole thing of, you think being in that area as a normal watchstander, you would know the difference between transmission lubricant and cooking oil.
To be honest there, Jared, if you see the actual lube oil used in the reduction gears, I can see it.
Yeah. They're very similar in color and everything, so yeah.
Oh.
It is a fair, like, don't get me wrong, I'm like, okay. It
would have a different smell, but I mean, oil smell back there, just lubrication oil is so prevalent back there. You'd smell lubrication oil regardless, so you just see that. You see a lot of oil on the ground, you're in the lube bay, you're going to react. I mean...
okay.
Yeah. At that time, when it was called away as a rupture in the PLO, the OD ordered all stop, followed by an all-head full once the EO told them that it's... Nope, we're all good. We're fine. And then... sorry. Cat doesn't want to not sit in my lap, so... All right, he ordered the dive to prepare low pressure blow on all main ballast tanks, basically to finish pushing out any water that's there. And 0628 Zulu, they conduct a high data rate raise the mast for communication. And at 0630, the chief of the watch restored the trim pumps by pumping from one vented auxiliary tank to another. With the system restored, he commenced to deballast and pumped approximately 100,000 pounds of water overboard. It's a lot of water.
Yeah.
All right. And 12 minutes after raising the HDR mast, they send their initial OPREP 3 voice report to CTF 74. So. And then at 0641, the officer deck ordered that the low pressure blow begin. The number 2 trim pump was in a reduced status due to a material deficiency on the pump's motor controller. The motor controller overheated during the sustained operation of the pump. A temporary standing order directed the auxiliary machinery room watch to monitor the number 2 trim pump resistor panel with the pump in operation. At 0710 Zulu, the number 2 trim pump motor controller glowed red and was smoking. It was called away as an electrical fire, and 5 minutes later, power was secured to the trim pumps and the fire was extinguished. The QAO relieved the officer of the deck and shifted the watch to the bridge. The CO ordered the officer deck to maintain a low pressure blow on all main ballast tanks. And CTF
Because they were leaking.
Yeah.
Or at least the bow ones.
Yeah. And the CTF 74 directed them to go to Guam, and they got to Guam on the 8th. The bow dome detached during transit. So somewhere between the South China Sea and Guam, there's
what
a sonar
remains of the sonar dome.
Yeah.
It's a miracle no one got seriously hurt, though. For real.
So speaking of injuries,
that's crazy.
Oh no.
The 3MC hit his head on a mounting bracket in the vicinity of the countermeasure space. He suffered a scalp laceration and displayed symptoms of concussion. The OOD fractured his right scapula when hitting the carry-on equipment in the control room. In addition to those two, 9 other crew members were evaluated for fire and minor injuries. During the transit to Guam, Connecticut identified 7 sailors who would benefit from mental health treatment. During his interview, the independent duty corpsman stated that the number grew to approximately 50 sailors, so nearly half of the boat.
Whoa.
I can't blame them for that.
Okay, if this was my command staff that had done this, I would be probably having issues as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fully fair. So the OOD was medevaced, or not medevaced, but they treated his scapula, took him to the Guam Naval Hospital, and then flew him to Bremerton for follow-on medical care. There was a tightness in the neck and shoulder. One sailor cut his right hand, or had a bruise. One sailor with possible finger fracture. One sailor with a contusion on his lower right back. One sailor with a slight laceration to the surface of his left hand. Another sailor with a contusion on his right elbow. That must have been a funny bone one.
Mm-hmm. Not so funny.
Left upper arm pain, and then a contusion and superficial laceration to his sternum. And one sailor reported a medical, but it was determined not to be injured.
But none with a shoulder and knee.
Yeah, they got really fucking lucky when it came to the injury side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really fucking lucky.
That's no joke.
All right. Performance maintenance monitoring team verified the proper operation of the depth detection system, i.e. the digital and the analog sea pressure systems that could tell you that you were at the right depth. Divers found rocks in the MBT 1A and 1B.
The forward main ballast tanks.
Yep.
How many ballast tanks do the Seawolf have? You know,
I want to say at least 4, maybe 5. And I know we had 6. Well,
we had 5. So.
We had 6. You know, obviously most of them parted.
So this was the Connecticut. It was the standard length Seawolf. So you're probably looking at 4 to 5.
I'm just curious because I know that would be the first 2. I don't know if there were 2 or 3 forward. So.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
No single action or inaction caused this mishap, but it was preventable. It resulted from an accumulation of errors and omission in navigation planning, watch team execution, and risk management. Prudent decision making and adherence to standards in any one of these series areas could have prevented this grounding.
Yeah.
A grounding at this speed and depth had the potential for more serious injuries, fatalities, or even loss of the ship. Injuries on board the Connecticut were relatively minor. 11 members were physically injured. 2 most serious were a fractured right scapula and mild head trauma. The actions immediately following the grounding were effective. The crew put the ship in a stable condition on the surface, managed injuries, equipment damage, and transited to Guam safely and securely. The navigation plan for the day of the grounding failed to meet the safe navigational standards, and the navigation review team, including the CEO, had failed to identify and properly mark at least 10 charted hazards to navigation in the vicinity of the grounding, including 2 charted water depths shallower than the COSOE maximum operating depth. So there were 2
navigational anomalies.
Oh, no. 2 of them were actually shallower than their maximum operating depth that they were allowed to operate at. So that means they could, no matter what they were doing, if they were operating near the maximum operating depth, they would have collided or grounded.
So those 2, they had to have gone around laterally.
Or no, they could.
Well, they still could have gone over, but it was the fact that these 2 hazards, the peak of them was above the minimum, the max depth that the established plan gave. So even had they followed the plan, those 2 risks were still not covered.
Yep.
Oh, so in those 2 cases, it would have been an actual oh shit moment.
No, it's even with that. No, what it was is even the plan was incomplete because you still had risk potential even if the plan was followed. So from what I got from the setup before all this is that COSE, that meant that operational area that is given from Nav, the bottom of it, the max depth of it, is still supposed to be above any risk in the area. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
So then that would have been on the individuals that created the plan.
Yes, and approved it and reviewed it. That entire process failed.
Yep.
So if this were to have landed on either of those 2 objects, this entire operation would have been a failure on senior command teams.
Well, it would have been a failure of everybody that does anything to do with the navigation of the ship. The quartermasters that plan the chart, the ANAV, NAV, XO, and CO that approve all of that.
Look at the QMOW and go right up the chain of command.
Yeah.
Everybody there.
Fire control too.
Well, fire control not so much.
We double check sonar though.
But sonar, again, even though the fathometer is technically sonar, it has nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah, this is purely navigational planning that we're looking at. Was the initial point of failure.
You see,
initially, yeah, I'll take that.
Because in this particular case, look what navigation did. The overlays were removed. They weren't doing the fathometer soundings, which we're not going to pay attention to. We might know about the charts, but without the overlays there, we're not going to. Because they were, it's fire control isn't. Sonar isn't on. The closest they got to it was, hearing the ship noise bouncing off the bottom, seconds before the collision.
Yeah.
This is all on, QMOW chain of command up.
Yeah. And this paragraph sums up the whole situation quite well. The CO's decision to use a temporary route instead of updating the nav plan with a PIM track, basically a permanent track, significantly contributed to the grounding. This decision ultimately prevented the CO, NAV, and ANAV from bringing their experience to bear in the voyage planning and compounded all the other navigational errors and omissions. The CO verbally approved the temporary route in the VMS tactical layers without a detailed or formal review. During his interview, the CO described the temporary route as his, quote, commander's intent, end quote, and indicated that he was not concerned when the watch team conned around charted but unmarked navigational hazards near the track or altered it on several occasions.
What?
The CEO is basically saying it's not my responsibility. They know what they're supposed to do as watchstanders. they're responsible for this.
Yeah, that's not
He's
how
trying
that
to
works.
he's trying to throw the whole team under the bus below him.
Way to
No.
go, shithead.
No.
That's not how
No,
that
the
works.
admiral and everybody above him and everything knows that no, the buck stops with you as the CEO. You may have that intent, but you are ultimately responsible. And
Yeah,
the captain knows
tried
it. But
saying no, fuck you.
yeah. The navigation review team, including the CEO, incorrectly assessed the Connecticut would be operating in an open ocean environment. They should have recognized the ship would be in restricted waters based upon the planned track passing near multiple navigational hazards. Had they done so, a modified piloting party would have been stationed with additional watch standards focused on navigation safety. I.e., there would have been somebody dedicated to the fathometer checking it at bare minimum every 15 minutes or so. A bare minimum of 15 for most navigation, but obviously probably closer to like 12, 6, 3 minutes, depending on how close they are to the actual bottom on the track.
And hopefully they wouldn't be sitting there doing the
Yeah.
Wow.
Upon identifying the charted but unmarked navigational hazards near the temporary route, the CEO, CDO, OOD, and QMW should have recognized the area of transit as restricted waters, and accordingly they should have stationed a modified piloting party with additional watch standards for focusing on navigational safety. The ANAV undermined the on-watch navigation team by actively preventing the QMW from marking a charted navigational hazard 2 hours before the grounding. The QMW's focus on identifying and avoiding charted but unmarked navigation hazards, among other constraints, detracted his ability to properly monitor and operate the fathometer.
For example, he failed to shift to shallow mode during a portion of the hour leading up to the grounding, as would have been appropriate based on the observed soundings. Yeah.
But didn't the previous watch fail to log their soundings?
No, this was all the same watch.
Well, no.
Okay.
So the offgoing watch before whatever the fuck pseudo name they gave themselves, that offgoing watch did have issues with the soundings, but it was never reported.
Right.
No, Jared. They were operating on an 8-hour watch schedule. They took over at 23:30. The collision grounding was at 6.
Okay, so all the
06
same one.
18.
Yeah.
It's all the same watch.
No, but even before that watch change, there was mention of inconsistent fathometer readings.
Yeah.
So that bit started.
Not a part of the report that we have unclassified.
There was talk about the fathometer issue before the watch came on.
Mm-hmm.
That was the forward fathometer that was intermittently broken. They still had the aft one. They did not mention at the time of the watch turnover that there was an issue with the sounding track. It all started at 01:15 when they had the loss of sounding.
Well, there was the notes of the no soundings being recorded prior to that watch.
That's what I was talking about.
That's what we're talking about, is that the offgoing watch did not record soundings until this watch section came on, and nothing was logged until those couple hours into the watch that they started noting the loss of soundings.
Hold on. Where is it? Change of the watch. That's what I want. Just give me the damn watch.
And also, they couldn't even give a proper turnover to the other watch.
All right. Talking about changing the temporary route.
Yeah, there were already issues with the information here.
Right.
And this is prior to that watch taking over.
Right.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
was it they weren't when they did the actual turnover, or at least as far as they're reporting on the turnover, there was no mention prior to that of
Right.
loss
It
of
was an
sounding.
improper turnover.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it wasn't. We don't get the notes of the loss of sounding until this guy actually started logging it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
0115. Yeah.
Yeah, the prior watch that was noted that this report started prior to this the harder section coming on.
Mm-hmm.
That previous QMOW there was no reference to what he was getting for his soundings, if there was even anything logged.
well, but we can't assume that they weren't getting soundings.
If we go back further, I think there was a mention of that there were no soundings logged in that time period.
Yeah. I do remember that. There was a fuck up in the logging of the soundings. Yeah.
Actually, I think that was later.
That was later.
Was it later?
Yeah, it was after that 0115.
I think it was around 03 something, if you want to advance.
Yeah, that's what it was. They were just talking about zero. Yeah, this is them doing the voyage planning. I mean, it could be in here that it was before that, but they would have said some. They would have also mentioned that the other quartermasters were failing to do it. Yeah. This is just them talking about what.
I'm also sitting there like realizing like, wait a minute, it's like an hour and 15 minutes watch, and he's finally doing a bathymeter reading.
No, I bet you he was getting soundings, and they were probably checking with chart. But this is the first time that he records an attempted sounding where it was a loss of sounding.
First time anything was recorded.
So this is the first time in the watch. So on this day.
Yeah.
So it's safe to assume that the previous watch wasn't having an issue with it. It was this watch that was having it, and this is the only QMOW that was having the issues. Now, sure, there are times where they're just intermittent, like, oh, we didn't get a sounding here, but we got one 5 minutes later, and it checked with chart, so we knew where we were at. Those types of things happen all the time.
Those happen, yeah.
But when it's consistently for 2.5 hours, 5 hours, and then all of a sudden you're scraping the bottom. Yeah, that's all on the one QMOW, not doing their job.
Yeah, because I've seen some of the log entries are like a half hour apart. Some of them are 15 minutes apart.
Yeah, it just depends on usually where you are in relation to restricted waters. Because you can even be not in restricted waters and still have a 15-minute fixed position that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, no, so hang on. We finished that. We were at the next page.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. I just make sure. For example.
Yep.
For example, he failed to shift the shallow mode during a portion of an hour leading up to the grounding, as would have been appropriate based upon the soundings. The OOD and QMOW were complacent with the inability to obtain soundings at high speed and were generally not sensitive to the risk of grounding. For example, the QMOW lost soundings on multiple occasions early into his watch but failed to carry out the actions prescribed by the CO standing orders. So at the first one, I would have been like, hey, Officer Deck lost a sounding, rechecking soundings.
Which just makes me, in retrospect now, this makes me wondering if I'm going back and thinking of the lineup on the watch thing of having the Nav Sup as a
third class,
as a third class, and the QMOW as a second class. Is this QMOW second class because he's an idiot?
Maybe.
Is he in that position and not Nav Sup because he's an idiot kind of concept?
Well, that's possible. I mean, The problem with having three rates worth of job responsibility on board a ship can really prevent you from learning the proper skills to do just one of them accurately. Like we had in my division, we had people that were great at Nav Watch and Nav Supervisor stuff in the Nav Center, but you try putting them as an AEF and they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, even though they were qualified. And vice versa, we had AEFs that were great, but they sucked at QMOW. And then, you have guys that are great at being QMOWs, but aren't great with, the IC stuff or the ET stuff. I mean, it's you figure out who's good at what, and then you just put them in those positions on the watch.
And you tailor accordingly. And if you had the flexibility, you try to bring up their skills in those other areas as opportunity presents itself.
Yep.
But that's the thing with the with the limited staffing and positions available on a sub. It is hard to do that. On a surface ship where you have a larger crew and more flexibility for job shadowing and specifically training like that, it's easier for the surface to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't really have that problem much either when I was in, because, well, I guess maybe it would have been coming down the pipe, but
yeah, it was coming down the pipe when you were in.
Because we literally still had QMs. There was Nav ETs and there was quartermasters. They were separate rates.
Yep, and their IC men were separate from them too. Yep.
Yeah, we still had IC.
but my whole thing with this is on our ships, you couldn't do a turnover without doing a proper turnover. I don't know how they got away with it. It's just
there's nothing mentioned about the turnover process in here, so we really can't comment on what the turnover process would have been.
Yeah, no, and for all we know that the turnover process was done accurately and correctly. There wasn't an issue, and then all of a sudden there was an issue, and this QMOW just fucked up.
Because they start on this particular when this watch took over, but they don't there's nothing talked about one way or the other about turnover.
Stated that they didn't know what speed they're going because that wasn't logged. They didn't know.
Well, no, the speed was logged. It's just classified at those rates.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, the speed issue was the fact that the OOD didn't tell sonar.
Yeah, because the speed does affect things there.
Yep. And
but that was also this OOD, so
yeah.
Well, yeah.
So
let's not talk about the previous watch section, because we pretty much know absolutely nothing about them, and we don't know. There's nothing about their turnover, or
they could have been the most stellar watch section.
We would. I of course, based upon
judging by
this, I would question that, but okay.
Well, no, I totally agree with you.
I was going to say, judging by the overall command climate, I would not have any trust in any of the watch teams. None.
After identifying the sounds, did not check the chart. The OD, ANAV, and QMOW failed to critically assess the sounding trends relative to the charted bathymetry along the ship's track. This would have told them, when you're looking at it, it's like, hey, I've got a depth of this amount. It's nowhere near the track. Where you then expand out a little bit further to see where it could attract. And then as you find one that looks like, oh, shit. These are all indicators that before you even close to hitting it. So the QMOW failed to formally recommend corrective actions for safety of ship. The QMOW should have recommended to reduce speed, depth, and to shift to a non-secure fathometer mode to obtain an accurate sounding at several points during his watch. Not to mention, probably should have also maybe considered turning around. But again, operational, I don't know the operational standards, but...
Yeah.
Issue resolution. The failure of the COXO, NAV, and ANAV to identify, self-assess, and hold personnel accountable for previous navigation deficiencies led to the low standards. The CO periodically found the nav plan errors, but did not conduct critiques or fact-finding meetings to address the errors. Similarly, the CO, XO, NAV, and ANAV failed to internalize and correct operational planning, and navigation deficiencies identified by the squadron commanders.
In short, everybody was being a cowboy.
Yep. When the watch team identified significant COSOE errors approximately 1 hour prior to the grounding, the CO or the OD should have slowed the ship and conducted a critical assessment of the voyage plan. Instead, the CO approved a new COSOE in the VMS tactical error without involving the nav.
Yeah, this is what we call people being OFP on their own fucking plan.
The CO, XO, COB, NAV, and ANAV.
Man, let's wing it.
Wing it, fuck it.
Now, this is where the COB comes in and kind of like, you could say, okay, yeah, the COB has something to do with it, but not really. The CO, XO, COB, NAV, and ANAV missed a significant opportunity for self-reflection and improvement following the Pier collision in April. This mishap resulted from multiple errors and omissions by the navigation team. Failure of the OOD to take decisive action upon recognizing the danger and the lack of the CO's involvement. The ship conducted a safety stand-down to address these problems, but it was not adequately focused on addressing the root cause of the collision.
It is different, but that's also why everybody else on that list is like looking at like disciplinary action, and the COB is just relieved. So,
well, he's not even relieved. They were evaluating to see if he. Well, at the time of this report, he was being evaluated to be able to be a COB still or not.
He's got issues, but it's not to the same level as everybody else.
Yeah. Overall, the Connecticut peaked to performance standards during inspections and evaluations, as evidenced during the Palm Eval and the mid-deployment check ride. In absence of external oversight or evaluation, the COXO, COB, and other leaders failed to maintain day-to-day standards. The fully operational forward bottom sounder would have prevented this grounding. At a speed of 24 knots, it would have provided only a few additional seconds of warning relative to the aft bottom sounder. However, reoccurring material deficiencies in both bottom sounders may have contributed to the watch team's questioning fathometer indications and delaying actions. The CO should have issued a temporary standing order to provide guidance to the watch teams on how to operate the forward bottom sounder, or how to operate with the forward bottom sounder unavailable in deep modes. The Connecticut attempted to troubleshoot and repair the forward bottom sounder throughout the deployment and received appropriate technical support. Individual actions. In accordance with Navy regulations, the CO is ultimately responsible for the safe navigation of the ship, and he failed to do this. Second in the command, XO shares the CO's responsibility for safety of the ship, and he failed to do this. The NAV was responsible for safe navigation of the ship, and he failed to do this. Are we sensing a pattern here?
A little bit.
Maybe.
The ANAV bears responsibility for safe navigation of the ship. As the most experienced navigator on board, the ANAV is prepared for unsafe and imprudent the ANAV prepared an unsafe and imprudent nav plan. When consulting regarding soundings that did not check with the chart, he was not diligent in determining the root cause or failed to make prudent recommendations to the watch team. Most egregiously, he directed the QMOWs to remove stay-out areas around what would have the navigation hazards along the planned track, and would have required the OOD to station a modified piloting party. Oh.
Yeah, ANAV is fucked.
Oh, no. ANAV didn't want to get wrecked out to stand the first modified piloting party watch because, the NAV would have made him do it.
Well, no, I'm saying at the end of all of this,
oh yeah,
ANAV his career's over.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can pretty much guarantee the CO, XO, NAV, and ANAV's career's over.
Yeah.
The QMOW probably as well.
Oh yeah.
If not directly, effectively, he'll finish out the contract, but that's it.
Yeah. He won't get the opportunity to re-enlist. The OD is responsible for safe operation of the ship. He did not adequately resolve the errors, yada, yada, yada. QMOW's primary responsibility is safe navigation. With the ANAV, he developed an imprudent and unsafe nav plan. He then inappropriately amended the temporary route in violation of the SOM. Although the QMOW identified some hazards, he imprudently deleted the stay-out areas in the VMS when directed by the ANAV. This is one of those where you're given an order, in certain circumstances it could be considered a lawful order, But this is one where he should have been challenging it from the, no, I'm not going to do that. That's what he should have done. But he's just a QMAL, and the ANAV is usually a first class or a chief, so. Due to the nav plane errors, the QMOW was too distracted to operate the fathometer in the correct mode and to take appropriate actions for loss of sounding or to make clear and direct recommendations to the OOD with indications of rapidly shoaling trend on the fathometer. QMOW's failures are indicative of the environment in which he was trained and developed. So.
But despite that, he still has responsibility.
Oh yeah, no, they're not. Yeah.
It's just to note that, okay, we understand where you are on the totem pole, and you are a victim of circumstance because of the fucksticks above you, but you still should have fucking known better.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah.
As one of the CO's principal advisors, the COB is responsible for issues of resolution and enforcement of standards. He failed to facilitate a questioning attitude among watchstanders and foster the environment that allowed the grounding to occur. The ops is not culpable of the grounding. He was not involved in the nav plan review and led a planning meeting where the leaders determined the transit speed of 16 knots was appropriate. Ops was not involved in the CO's subsequent decision to increase speed. As such, his effectiveness was marginalized. The OSO is not culpable of the grounding. The CO did not empower him to independently monitor and assess the effectiveness of the ship's operations. The CTF-74's tasking to conduct a humevac was within the Connecticut's ability to plan and execute. The Connecticut's FRTP resulted in a higher operational and personnel tempo, but it did not cause or contribute to the grounding. Basically, they were operating on a high op tempo, but it wasn't out of the norm. So, accountability. I recommend that the CO is to be subject to non-judicial punishment for violation Article 92, dereliction of duty, on Article 10, improper hazarding of a vessel for negligence contributed to and failure to prevent the grounding. I also recommend the administrative chain of command initiate detachment for cause.
Again, career over.
That's pretty much the officer version of an other than honorable.
Yep. I recommend the XO, Lieutenant Commander C. Cashin, in his capacity as command duty officer, be subject to the non-judicial punishment violation of Article 92, dereliction of duty. I also recommend detachment for him as well.
Yeah.
I recommend the NAV be subject to a non-judicial punishment of Article 92, Article 10, and Article 10 as well, and also a detachment.
The OOD.
Same thing, 92 and Article 10, 110. Also to conduct a detachment for cause. The ANAV, the Senior Chief ETV, subject for dereliction of duty and improper hazarding of vessel for negligence, also initiate detachment. I recommend the on-watch QMOW be subject to a non-judicial violation, Article 92.
So
no detachment,
NJP, but you get to stay in.
Yep. And then I recommend administrative counseling for the COB.
30 days confinement to the brig.
Regarding his duties and responsibilities to uphold standards, the administrative chain of command should determine and based on an overall performance whether Rogers has the requisite leadership abilities to return Connecticut to standards. So upon the administrative command doing their eval of this COB, if they feel that maybe he was trying to do everything, he was getting shot down with a CO and XO all the time. That's a possibility, but he should have then resigned to help show that the chain of command is flawed. But, when you're at that position, you really want to quit either, you know what I mean?
But the higher-ups knew that the CO was incompetent? But they still let them out anyways.
Maybe. I mean, that's kind of like one of those things where you look at it where that previous outgoing Commodore went to the admirals and then suddenly changed his mind and stuff.
And I'm sure
It's
this. I'm sure this blacked out area has information
Has to
saying
do with that.
Like that's just a situation where it's quite clear when the Commodore when the Commodore Squadron 5 talked to
CTF 74 and Subpack.
Well, no, when he talked to Subpack. We're not getting to CTF 74. When he talked to Subpack, something in that conversation made him change course.
Yep.
Right, but it was the year before all this happened that the guy ran aground again. Or
No.
No, they hit the pier
with the Admiral. Yeah, the Allieding, but.
Oh, okay.
That was like 6 months.
Yeah,
was like
it's not a year.
Before.
So that's like May 2021, and this happened in you're right.
October, 21.
Yeah.
I recommend reviewing the COXO and department head talent management and assignment processes to identify any lessons learned from this incident. Although the Connecticut COXO and department heads were fully qualified for their assignments, this was a particularly weak team. That is the most understated statement in this entire report.
In other words, who the fuck found these guys?
Well, it's one thing to have one.
Who the
weak
hell is
link.
their recruiter?
It's something to have one weak link in the chain that can learn from the others. But when all of them are that weak, the fuck?
The entire chain is weak.
Yeah. You might.
I think a lot of this does fall on the CO though, because
of course,
it was really his laxity that kind of cultivated that.
Yeah.
At this point,
were these people like this before, or is this just kind of a product of that environment?
That's a good question.
Yeah, if they were like this before, then I would investigate as far back as their recruiters, like the people that actually got them to enlist in the first place.
Basically, they want to take the fathometers out and make sure that they're working properly. I recommend coordinating with the National Geospatial Agency and VMS stakeholders to develop operator aids to identify poor chart accuracy and to better identify navigation hazards. The inspection team, comprised of officers and senior enlisted leaders from multiple U.S. Navy communities, reviewed VMS chart features in detail with the following recommendations. First, develop a tool that provides VMS operators all information on zones of confidence of charted regions below A1 or some other quantitative measure of poor chart accuracy. A1 is like the biggest sheet of paper that you can make something on. It's like slightly bigger than a poster. And a chart that big is just totally useless for navigation purposes.
Good to know.
So,
Because who the fuck would have a table that big?
An engineer, a drafting engineer.
Anybody that's making a grid
Engineer's
pattern.
gonna let you use your map on his table.
No. The thing about that size of a map is not meant for necessarily navigation. What it's meant for is to assign water space management grids for submarines. So there's areas out in the ocean that are named certain things, and when you get your orders, you are told from this date and time to this date and time you are going to be the owner of
this block.
Area purple that's named purple, or this area that's named platypus, or whatever. They don't even have to be like pattern.
They're basically an area commander's map who's just going to go, okay, we're going to give these guys this grid and this guy is this grid.
And incorporate automated warnings when an owned ship's look-ahead approaches zone of confidence, region C, D, or U. Second, digitize the depth of water under the navigation hazards and label them on the top level of VMS display rather than requiring an operator to query the object. Third, automatically include deselectable stay-out areas of predetermined diameters around navigational hazards.
Pretty much make it so they can't be turned off.
Exactly. And if you know there's a navigational hazard there that a submarine could possibly collide with, fucking mark it already. And
Why is it even a feature to turn it off? I mean,
well, they
Yeah.
probably work with Google, so I mean, it's not a bug; it's a feature.
Fuck that bullshit.
And this line here is what makes me question: were they on the up-to-date VMS system? VMS stakeholders and other appropriate organizations to review or develop a process for supplementing VMS with reliable chart information from allies and partners, prioritizing information in areas of low chart accuracy and pedigree, particularly in where U.S. submarines are likely to operate. I.e., if Japan has really awesome sounding areas in here, can we have their charts and put them into the system? Because I bet you
that indicates they probably had updated charts, but probably there weren't updated charts to that area.
Well, what I'm
at least that
wondering
we had is.
Well, I mean, when it came to updating charts and stuff, it was the publications petty officer who get a message that you would update the various publications and whatnot, and then if a chart update came in, you have to go and pull the chart and scratch out the information.
I was the pub PO for the FT div, so it's kind of the concept.
You know what? It's you understand. But at the same time, when it comes to these digital charts, you would think that if there's a radio message, that they could either send an update that gets printed out and typed in line by line, or copy and pasted via email into the VMS system. I don't know.
Yeah, you would think that they would have that ability. Now, this is an interesting one. Because after that, at the time of this grounding, the fathometer displayed a substantial and stable digital depth beneath the keel with no alarm, even as the digital trace rapidly shoaled.
I'm wondering if now, granted, when they say digital, they're not talking like digital. A lot of these were more like
a number
numbers. Yeah, kind of like the old flip alarm clocks, that had all the numbers on the. Yeah,
they just mean it's not analog.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then this is all the appendices and what they reference
materials. Yeah.
Oh, Bowditch.
Yeah,
but
it's a hell of a shit show. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This should be available then, I would think, or at least it's no foreign at this point.
Probably by FOIA, not.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, it was as secret, but it's not listed as secret now. So because of the NJP, it's in a different classification, but is not unclassified. And it probably has to do because they're going through the review to see what can be unclassified and redact it the way the rest of this was.
Suspects rights of acknowledgement. All the way up to here.
Really, chances are, too, especially with some of those there, is like even if they unclassified it, when it's redacted, there'd probably be really nothing to listen to.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to me just because of my job in the navigation side of things.
Well, no, what we're saying is that it would be redacted to the point of being useless.
Oh, no, I probably, but I would still love to be able to get my hands on it.
It's a 2-hour interview. They'll give you 3 frames.
You get 5 words. The, a, in, and with, just randomly on pages. Everything else is black.
No, they'll send me the video files. They'll just be blacked out, and the words will just randomly pop up on the screen just to...
A is for and.
You see the person's face for a second where he goes, the black screen.
H is for however.
I actually did think about emailing the ComSub pack offices to to see if I could get anything. Explain that I was a Nav AT. I'm very interested in this, but at the same time, I'm just like, yeah, they're probably not going to give me that information because I don't have an active clearance anymore.
Right?
So I didn't even bother, but
Well, it's not even the clearance, it's also the need to know.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
But I would love to know. I can keep a secret.
It's on a need to know basis, and you don't need to know.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most fun things you can do when you actually have a clearance and you're in charge of an area that is restricted access, is you can look at someone who, say you're an E5, you can look at an O6 and go, sorry, sir, you're not on my list. I can't let you in.
And I love
when I was in,
so much.
I got a perfect example of that because when I was in, they still had nuclear tomahawks, and my boat was capable of carrying them. Someone asked us like, "Oh, your boat can carry nuclear tomahawks?" Yes, we're capable of carrying nuclear tomahawks. Have you ever carried nuclear tomahawks? Yes, we're capable of carrying nuclear tomahawks.
Oh no, mine was better. My sedan, he was like, "While we have the legacy equipment, you don't need to worry about the nuclear tomahawks."
Hey.
Well, they were gone by then, yeah.
No one cares.
I can neither confirm nor deny whether we've ever carried the nuclear tomahawks, but we have the capability.
So you got 3 people in here that know the maximum speed of their subs, but we can't talk about it.
Well, I mean,
I can tell you how fast my sub go in excess of 20 knots.
Yeah, I can go in excess of 20 knots as well.
No, that's still classified.
No, it got bumped up. It got bumped up recently.
No,
When I was in, it was up to 24 knots.
In excess of.
Yes.
Well, it's like the carriers. They can go in excess of 30 knots.
Yeah,
I know how fast they can actually go. It is in excess of 30 knots. I just can't say what it is.
We can also dive in excess of 400 feet.
I have the ability to say in excess of 800 feet, so...
But is this one of those things like the court thingy when one of the people was asking, "Oh yeah, but how long can it stay under?"
3 months.
Longer than
I
that.
can.
Oh, the Australian one? Oh,
the Australian one.
The stupid looking one.
That's classified.
Well, I think we need to know. And you have the other voice off camera saying, you don't get to determine what's classified and not.
I love it when the chairman actually does his job.
I love that clip. That clip was amazing.
I can tell you that we could carry 90 days worth of food stores.
Yep.
Actually, speaking of the clip, is that something that can get copyrighted?
That might get claimed.
I don't think military is
that's
allowed
sad.
to copyright.
Well,
No. Cal, he's referring to that
Australian Senate hearing.
The Australian parliamentary hearing about the replacement to the what?
That was a I don't actually. I've seen that in multiple. I don't think it'd be claimed because if I remember right, that was actually a video that was done by the Australian Parliament.
Right. That's just it. Here in the U.S., all congressional hearings, unless they're dealing with an actual classified material, are open to the public and can be used by the public for whatever purposes they want.
So in that regard, the government nor any individual is allowed to copyright strike.
Governments can't copyright. So.
Well, depends on what the government's rules are, because Australia's government might be different than ours. They might be able to have a copyright claim because maybe they
theoretically they could, but they don't. So that's
it'd be hard. Yeah, I'm just saying that we don't know, so we can't say for certain. But I would assume no.
Well, I know for certain they don't, but it's the same. It's the same concept in Australia as here.
Yeah, that's actually why a while back I won the copyright claim from against British Paith about the recording of FDR's speech for December 7th. because a recording, audio or video, of a elected official of the U.S. government is not allowed to be copyrighted by anyone.
Period.
In fact, of the kind of like Commonwealth descended countries, the only one I think that actually has an issue like that is Britain, like the UK itself.
Yeah. That's because the Queen is well.
Well, a lot of that is because a lot of that stuff done by the BBC, and they own the copyright to it because the way that's set up there. But
it's because
It's
they
just
are.
that you need a license for that.
But Canada legislature broadcasts are not copyrighted.
Same thing with the U.S. and
So
I'm not sure about a lot of civil laws. I couldn't tell you about France or Italy or Russia or.
So
Russia don't
someone
care.
in Britain tried to copyright Frankie Roosevelt?
No, so
No.
the historical footage, so the video and audio recording of FDR giving his day that will live in infamy speech to Congress, when they finally declared war against Japan, and then shortly thereafter Germany. There is a version of it that is on the YouTube channel British Path and that's where I pulled the clip from. They tried to copyright claim it, and I challenged it by saying, prove that you actually have the copyright, because according to this U.S. code, no federal employee or individual civilian can copyright works that were made for the government for, I forget the exact verbiage, but it's basically saying any speech, recording of a speech, or notification given to Congress or from the president or any other elected official cannot be copyrighted. Because it goes directly to the National Archives, it is not held by a private entity.
But you pulled it from my video. Doesn't matter.
Do you think that the link in the chat there, or the internal chat, would be safe? Or just nah?
If that's the recording and it's from the Australian Parliament, it should be fine.
It's part of it, and it's by a news outlet.
It should still be fine, I would think, as long as you.
Again, we are doing commentary, and it is fair use at that point.
Yep.
Can we watch it, please?
Let's go for it.
Hold on, I'm getting there. Oh crap! I gotta put this in the other browser. Never mind. Hold on. I can play it, but you guys won't hear it because the way I have things set up. So, because I have Chrome specifically going through one outlet or one output, and so when I play it in Chrome, you guys don't hear it.
Yeah, and I would have to download it and then play it for me to share it and get you guys the audio.
You suck.
But after we watch this, we can go ahead and do the announcements, because we are coming up on midnight, and I would actually like to enjoy all of tomorrow with the wife before I have to get on a plane at 3 in the fucking morning on Monday.
Where are you going?
Yeah, but you have all day Saturday and all day Sunday.
Right?
Sunday, I'm going to be packing and getting other shit ready to leave, because my happy ass has to be up at 2:30.
And sleeping in.
Pump jets into a sub. Now, is it true that pump jet submarines can only stay underwater for 20 minutes?
No, Samson. I do not know what you're referring to about pump jet submarines remaining underwater for 20 minutes.
Oh, I forgot that was the initial question on that. That fucking hell. Like, I knew her I remember her questions being stupid, but not that level of stupid.
Yes.
The worst part about it is, Jared, I think she's still in office.
No.
What was the question again?
Go back.
Pump jets into a sub. Now, is it true that pump jet submarines can only stay underwater for 20 minutes?
No, Senator.
What?
I don't know what you're referring to about pump jet submarines remaining underwater for 20 minutes. Can I just be clear again? A pump jet is a form of propeller. It has no bearing on how deep a submarine can go, how long it can stay underwater. They are matters that pertain to the platform design of the submarine.
And the guy next to this fucking admiral, I think, he's just casually trying not to smile at her idiocy.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Now hold on. Can we all take a look at this admiral here and just applaud him for that he was able to make these responses and listen to these questions and maintain a straight face the entire time.
But I feel bad.
That requires
so
enormous
much
self-control.
That requires immeasurable amounts of intestinal fortitude. Like, he had to have been shitting himself laughing after this whole thing.
He sounds more so fucking annoyed at even being asked this.
Yeah.
It gets better.
Oh, I know the questions get better, but this is where this guy he's fed up with the idiotic bureaucrats that he has to deal with.
Yeah, you can see that in his eyes. You can see
it's
him
almost
looking at her like she's a goddamn retard.
It's almost,
Well, this is just legislatures in action. You know, you have someone making choices who has absolutely no fucking idea how the thing works that they're making choices.
It's almost worse because if you really look at and listen to this whole conversation, it's almost like they're trying their damnedest to do stuff they're not supposed to do.
But something to actually keep in mind with this, sometimes you do have to ask really fucking stupid questions during hearings like this in order to have them jotted down on paper so that no one afterwards can say, oh yeah, but didn't you say this? Weren't you aware of this? In cases where it could be technical information which later on shows up to be a problem, or that people reading it won't be able to understand or not having a clue about if it isn't actually in the minutes.
Yeah, well, I get there being that, but that question?
Yeah, no, that's just fucking retarded.
This is not a stupid question. In fact, whoever came with the idea that there was never a stupid question that wasn't asked, they never heard these. It didn't occur to them that someone would ask questions.
They did not live long enough to hear this.
Let's see what next gem she comes up
What
with.
about a diesel sump? So we are going
to buy diesel electric submarines, and I can assure you, Senator, they're going to stay underwater for much longer than 20 minutes. We have
3 days for 3 days. What's the period of time?
I'm not going to reveal what our requirements are for submerged endurance. That is classified. But
I don't think it's classified because actually
Senator Hanson, you don't get to make the call on what's classified and unclassified in this conversation.
So you can't
Rear Admiral.
So you can't disclose, which is knowledge of how long a diesel can stay underwater compared to what a nuclear sub can stay underwater.
A diesel.
Fuck me.
Oh my god.
It's beautiful, though.
I can understand her wanting to do her due diligence to make sure that they are not losing capacity. But you have to know what is and isn't allowed to be talked about publicly.
Yeah, that's a fair question. It's just you're not going to get an answer in an open hearing.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's
This
something she
is one
should
of
have
those questions
known,
where
though.
you have to
Someone in
pull
her
the rear
position
admiral off to the
should have
side and ask
known
him,
that.
are we going to lose capacity, yes or no?
But this is also something where, and I think that you submariners can actually agree on this. The propulsion, or not propulsion, the energy generating system isn't the sole factor deciding how long you can stay underwater.
Exactly.
Something like even storage space on board is a very limiting factor when it comes to actual underwater operating times.
Well, and oxygen generation.
Yep.
And food stores, and I mean, there's multiple.
There's a lot of
factors, but-
variables that.
How much food could you carry? Can you generate oxygen?
Can you create potable water?
Can you create potable? Yeah. So there's.
Yeah, those really are the big three. Can the crew breathe? Can they drink? Can they eat?
Yeah,
Whether you're using a pump jet or a screw, however. Nah, this doesn't.
Yeah. And to be honest, though, the best answer that he could give her in regards to this question about diesel or nuclear, he could be like, unfortunately, it's classified, but in this setting, I can't discuss it. But if you would like, I could send, upon verification of your security clearance, which I'm assuming she has the clearance.
I don't think she does.
I don't think she does
either. No.
Well,
she is on the Senate.
Yeah, being on that committee, she does have a clearance. The question is, to what extent is she read in?
Exactly, and that's
does she
that's where I
have
was going to go with it.
specific requisite need to know.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with it. The admiral can politely say, "Here's what I can tell you. If you want to know more, I can do this, but we have to make sure first that you are 1, carry the clearance, 2, have the need to know, and 3, have been read in appropriately. Just because you have a need to know doesn't mean you read into the program properly yet."
Yeah.
Electric submarine can stay underwater depending on the way it's designed. So that refers to matters about the size of the battery, the manner in which the hotel load, which is the power that is consumed by the submarine when it's operating, is used, and so forth. There are a number of factors that go into the period of time that a diesel electric submarine can remain submerged, Senator.
This Barracuda, actually, there is still one on the slipways in France that hasn't even been tested. We're actually basing a design on that has not been tested. Do you believe that is in our interests?
We have selected Naval Group as competent designers of diesel-electric submarines and indeed ocean-going submarines. We made that assessment on the basis of the competitive evaluation process, which I've endeavoured to explain was a very thorough process. We have no reason to believe that France is not capable of designing a submarine to meet our requirements.
All right, so here is the interesting bit with all of that. Yes, the design met the specifications for the replacement to the Collins class. I finally remember the class of submarine that this one is supposed to replace. The problem is, France hasn't actually been meeting their benchmarks to actually have the program reach completion, which is why, in the past year, Australia has told Naval Group, fuck off, we're going with someone else. And they're starting the process all over.
Yeah, they're orders of magnitude past the deadlines.
Yeah.
It's like there's delay after delay after delay.
Didn't I hear somewhere, no, I don't remember this, but didn't they say that they were going to go nuclear?
They are re-exploring it and are leaning towards it, but there is shore-based facilities that would have to be built and tested and trained on before they get to a maritime one. So you're still looking at multiple years out from them being able to field a nuclear powered sub.
There's kind of some legal hurdles involved that kind of go on with because like they want to do nuclear, and I mean I don't know why that's taken, but like there's kind of like this. There's some issues with like having the nuclear facilities in Australia, but they want the nuclear sub, and they need and they want to do it in have the stuff managed in house. So they need the facilities there, but they're not allowed to have them right now as things are currently written. So it's
I knew
a
they
legal
weren't gonna get
mess.
'em.
So,
As I said, I knew they weren't going to get them right away because, yeah, there's a lot of logistics into it.
No, say that the legislation that needs to be changed gets implemented tomorrow. They are still 10 to 15 years away from being on their own on a fully homogeneous nuclear power plant submarine.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yeah, that's where, because that interview was when? 2016?
I don't remember.
I think it was 16, 17. Yeah. It was at least 5 years ago. And the procurement for the Barracuda started almost 5 years before that. And at that point, the expected delivery date was just delayed again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were having a lot of issues with Naval Group on actually meeting deadlines. Actually, for those who are interested, if you go over to the Subbrief YouTube channel, Jive Turkey, he actually goes over that and goes in depth through the public part of the timeline, even going back to the original initial verbal agreements. Naval Group wasn't even the initial ones that were going to get the contract. They were initially going to go with the Japanese manufacturer.
Aren't the Australians looking at partnering with us to make their sub now?
Now, because they are leaning towards the nuclear power plant, but that's where they're still 10 to 15 years away from that.
Because Australia lacks the proper infrastructure to construct them on their own.
And there's legal limitations that Tech was referring to before they can even start with the shore-based facilities, which they
actually haven't. Technically, they actually haven't decided whether it's going to be a U.S. sub or not. I mean, I have a feeling they're going to lean that way only because they have they utilize our fire control hardware. They utilize a lot of our weapon systems, so I have a feeling they might go U.S. anyway.
They even use the Mark 48 ad cap.
Yeah. But they're still they still have the possibility of either doing a Virginia class or an Astute class, so it's still a little bit up in the air there. But
yeah,
either would be a good platform.
Yeah, they're showing to actually be worth it. I mean, it's essentially. I will give the Virginia class this, is that they were a nice. If you look at it, they were a nice pivot from what the Seawolves were supposed to be for fleet wide, and then when
they're a budget Seawolf.
Yeah. Yeah, for essentially being a budget Seawolf, they're actually really fucking good. Because there are certain mission profiles that the Seawolf does have some difficulty with because they weren't really intended for shallow and littoral water stuff. And that's where the Virginia has the advantage on them. But in deep water...
Yeah, the Seawolf was designed to hunt.
Yeah,
the Seawolf was designed to hunt alphas and shit. So,
yeah,
and the last of the Cold War designs.
Yeah, and then they had fun with the Jimmy Carter with that additional 33 feet.
Yeah, the
we're hearing that, Jay.
Sorry.
Yeah, the thing for interfacing with undersea cables.
Oh, we would never do such a thing. But, alright. So, we're towards the end of this. I'm going to be calling it a night here very shortly. But, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are changes, there are announcements coming up. And yeah, some people might see it as, well, a no-duh thing, but I'm making it official at this point. This is the official announcement. This being the, 4-year anniversary of the show now? Fuck. Going forward, as of now, we will be live for VTW once a month. Which week that happens will be determined by my schedule availability and what else I am doing. Because with the work schedule being what it has been, I can't guarantee what nights I'm going to be able to dedicate to a live portion with the frequency that it started out as. And with how chaotic it's been, especially over the last few months, it makes sense for this to be a live portion once a month, guaranteed. So just keep an eye out for that side of it. In the meantime, we will still be able to get together and give each other a hard time and talk about shit like this in the Discord server on a weekly basis, be it Friday night or Saturday night. We may end up doing things both nights. Those events may be recorded and posted for channel members. On an aside, part of freeing up the time on the weekends is so I can continue with taking care of myself and making sure that I'm actually doing what I need to for my own well-being so I can be the best for everyone around. Included with that, the Moto channel is going to start seeing content again within the next 45 days. Been riding more often again, and now it's just finishing updates to my setup and everything and getting more material and finishing up what I'm actually going to be talking about and doing with the material on that channel. That solidification is going to be taking place in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be roughly about the same amount of content on the main channel that it has been, but instead of trying to do it weekly and missing out every other week, once a month we're going to be doing VTW. Kanar with Damar may still end up being twice a week. That schedule is going to be ironed out more with the other hosts on the show. But that is still going to be a regular thing as well. The Moto channel is going to be kicked off again, relaunched and revamped once I tailor down the potential topics that are going to be talked about and addressed on that channel. But channel's not going away completely. We're just realigning things to what actually makes sense to still provide that community aspect for everyone, which is the primary purpose of all this. The live show portion is just going to be trimmed down to make it easier for my schedule and everyone else's schedule. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Roger.
Good.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Within
Or
the
porn.
too, though. Within the look too, though, maybe we can actually have Canal with the Mars. We can get the crowd in here too.
Oh, and that's part of it as well. We may actually end up going, because Jay's position at work has changed, so we can open up when the show actually happens. We may end up doing it Saturday mornings, the weeks that we do it. And this is where need to get all of us together to have a discussion to make sure that we are all on board with it, because it's not just me dictating it. Yes, sometimes I can be a dick. But when it comes to that show and it being mainly, especially the three of us and occasionally the other two assholes, want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So as the others want to come on to talk about something, we can make sure that it's in a time slot that works for everyone. Hell, we may even go to recorded shows for that one and have it be a premiere instead of a live stream. That is an option as well. So,
which means we can record them anytime.
Exactly. So, things are still going to be regular here, but I am solidifying things in what makes sense and works best for what's going on in my life away from the computer, while still keeping things available for those who do enjoy watching us make fools of ourselves and go over things and explain things. And I'm sorry, Sean, that you're not going to get your chance to edge us this week, but we will make sure that the end of this month, seeing as how this was supposed to take place this past weekend, this past Monday, this one does not count as the stream for June. So there will be one more VTW in June. Expect it to be one of the last 2 Saturdays of the month. Fair warning.
Okay.
Not sure if I'll be able to make that one.
I was going to say, I was waiting for you to say it's going to be tomorrow.
No. Like I said, tomorrow, the wife and I are taking the entire day to go do whatever the fuck we want for fun out of the house.
She's got huge tracts of land.
Because Sunday is going to be taking care of a few things around the house and packing so I can get on that plane ass early in the morning on Monday and not have to worry about anything being left undone. So Sunday's kind of a limited opportunity of time, so we made it a point that tomorrow is our day. And we're going to make use of that because there's been a lot of things going on that we've been getting ready for her side of things as well. Which not everyone is aware of what my wife does, and I plan to keep it that way because she has her thing, she has her avenue for stuff. She's over there. Most people wouldn't really be interested in it anyways because of what it is. So while I was helping there, it took away from things here. Now that that's gotten better and is performing and gotten set up to where we want it, I can readdress and reshuffle time so I don't shortchange myself like I was for a while. And that's the biggest thing. And this is what hopefully someone comes back and listens to the end of this when they wake up in the middle of tomorrow. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to help those and help take care of those that are most important in your life that aren't you. You gotta have that balance between your self-care and your help and care for others.
You are your first priority.
And who knows, that may end up being one of the primary focuses of the Moto channel, is just keeping that aspect of things. But I'm willing to take some input on any topics you guys want me to talk about over there as well. Make suggestions. I'm actually going to be putting in the time to, because so that one's not going to be entirely stuff on the bike. Like I am going to end up doing stuff to where I'm just here sitting at my desk going over stuff, giving my opinion and review of either topics, events, equipment, different brands, models of motorcycles, whatever. It's not all going to be moto vlogs. yes, there will still be those on there. Yes, there will still be footage from events, which there's an event that is in the initial planning stages that I am happy to be a part of, because it's actually going to be from a significantly larger channel that I randomly ran into the guy out and about. So sometimes it's good to be out and about in the world. You never know who you might run into and actually strike up a conversation and actually start to build something that can be beneficial. Not everyone's an asshole. Most of the time.
I'm surrounded by assholes.
But everyone has one.
So,
Well, technically that's not actually accurate, though.
Oh.
Didn't we develop our assholes before our mouths?
Pretty much, yes. We are...
Yes, at one point in time, you're nothing but an asshole.
Yeah, but technically, if you look at humans, we are, or actually most mammals, we are a mouth and an asshole with arms and legs.
And
the digestive tracts with locomotion.
But we're going to get going. Everyone who showed up, thank you. We'll see you next time. And like I said,
ring my bell to be a special subscriber.
She's one of the ones I need to get a hold of. Been meaning to. We'll see. What? Got something to say before I click the button? Nope. Too late.